All right, button has been pressed, light has turned green. We are all set and ready to go for our first Sunday edition of In Hindsight, where we're going to talk about a little known game called Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition.
Yep.
I'm, as always, Bograt.
I'm Travis.
Hi, Marty.
And I'm Vincent.
And can you tell Dragonborn are a core race now?
Can you tell I actually had to find some art for this page for it to not look kind of boring and or very weird? Because, as an aside, the actual two hardest images, less so with for all the slides I was making up to find, were the front cover and the back cover.
Really?
They're on the PDF.
Huh.
The PDF is actually excellent because for once I think we got like the print PDF, which also comes out weird when it comes to the chapters because it's the print PDF. It actually has like overflow of the art from one page to another, so I kind of had to splice those together, but this is all technical details that no one should care about. But yes, in any case, welcome once again to D&D Hindsight. As Bograt was saying, and Bograt will be joining us for this stuff because this is his place. Also, we have a much better sound setup here, so that's always a positive. You will not hear my chair squeaking, or occasionally the dog. Well, you might occasionally hear the dog. She's not here this week, but she'll be here next week. She says much.
Hey, look, the dog was positive.
This is true. Definitely a positive.
Boo this man.
Good night, everybody.
Any case, as you can see, we are starting with 4th edition. This will be more loose and fast. We are not going to go book by book through 4th edition because we will run out of anything intelligent very quickly.
We're going to be lucky to make it through the PHP, DMG, and Monster Manual and not run dry.
No, what happens is I will start squishing books together in order to actually make full sessions. So I expect to do like, as is the DMG and Monster Manual are going to be its own session as both of them. That's going to happen a lot with the other material as well, simply because there's not as much to talk about.
And we are also not committing to going through literally every 4th ed book. Not that there are nearly as many as there were in 3.5. But also, again, as you'll see as we kind of go through this, at a certain point, we're going to be saying the same things over and over because 4th ed is very genericized.
Also, a lot of the lore that would be... It's stuff that was only...
Not
No,
actually.
Really?
4th ed has entirely new lore. That was one of the big things they did. A lot of it is taken from various other places like Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms, and whatnot, but there's also a lot that is actually original. Well, quote-unquote original.
There's, actually, that is one of the more interesting and honestly meritorious things in 4th ed. They do take a lot. They also make a lot of new stuff, and it does carry over into 5th.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was expecting that to be the reason why you've already heard it.
No, it's kind of the opposite when it comes to the lore parts. It's the mechanical parts where you've already heard it because we've already went over the player's handbook. That's actually what's going to be the issue. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and get started. Starting with Chapter 1. How to play a RPG. This is really stuff we've gone over a lot in the past, but we'll go over briefly. It's the usual intro chapter. So, what's an RPG? What's a dungeon master? What's a dice?
I do want to say we're being extremely generous, allowing the 4th ed to get away with calling itself an RPG and not a slightly more complex tabletop miniatures war game.
Okay, there's an argument to be made that the combat itself, especially is a tabletop miniatures war game, and the stuff in between combat, that's the role-playing parts, so the game part of role-playing is nebulous at best.
It is kind of funny to me because, not having been involved in the 3.5 stuff going on, I don't know how much this has been talked about, but it is really funny that in a certain way it's actually going back to the origins because D&D started off as Chainmail, a tabletop medieval combat game. And even then, the first edition of regular Dungeons & Dragons, before it was even Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, was still very much a tabletop miniatures war game.
That is also the other kind of ironic part of it, precisely because there isn't anything to fill in the non-combat parts other than they had skill challenges, and that was about it. It is actually a much looser and faster when it comes to the role-playing section, so because there's not all of the... They basically dumped all the simulationism here, which is one of the major things I actually like. They don't have, detailed mechanics for every little fucking thing. It is figure it the fuck out, DM.
Yep.
Or stuff that's just going to come up once and it's just I don't know, find something out, or skill checks are still skill checks, so they still have those, but beyond that it is If you need like ship-to-ship combat, no, you don't. Fucking just figure out how to make the combat system work.
Make some rolls.
Yeah, make some rolls, narrate something. They're in ship-to-ship. They're lay down some grids that look like boats. Done.
Yeah, the only reason I really push heavily on the like fourth ed being a like tabletop miniatures war game is because this was also at the time when Wizards was very much trying to push the actual Dungeons and Dragons tabletop miniatures war game, and so they homogenized a lot of it, where a lot of the stuff that's in fourth ed works not exactly the same, but extremely similar to how the mechanics of that game work.
Also, and more to the point, yeah, Theater of the Mind does not work anywhere near as well with this one as it does even with 3.5. 3.5 itself was already gained away from it because of it is very mechanically built for a
Squares.
For squares.
It's all squares.
Hence the what do you need section, which is dice, books, and character sheets, which is usual for the era. Digital wasn't as much of a thing, but also minis, battle grid / dungeon tiles. You absolutely need those for fourth edition because things done me moving around and things done move things around.
It is interesting to note, as you said, digital was not as much of a thing. Fourth ed was really Wizards' also first foray into digital access and digital availability of stuff, because it was the first time they actually had built their own repository on a subscription base to gain access to sort of all the D&D stuff. But at the time, VTTs, or virtual tabletops, were not really a very common thing. Roll20 was still in a very early sort of in its lifespan and was even worse than it is today. I'm not going to say Roll20 is good. We've run into way too many issues with it to say that, but it is still leaps and bounds better than it was around the time that fourth ed was the prevalent D&D. And so it was like, it was really designed to sort of have that physical presence. You could get away with doing Theater of the Mind if you were experienced in older systems and could kind of do those translations in your head and just kind of build that. But if somebody coming into this being their first tabletop RPG, it was not really designed for it in any way, shape, or form.
No. And finally, in this area, or in this chapter, is like how do you play this section? And this is the beginning of them dividing it into three things: the combat encounters, the not yet combat encounters, and the exploration. Trust me, player characters will figure out how to turn something that was by no means meant to be a combat encounter into a combat encounter.
Yeah, and they did codify the not yet combat encounters a little bit. As Vince was saying earlier, the exploration was definitely a way more freeform. They're sort of varying levels. The combat encounters are very structured and very rigid in fourth ed. They are very specific. The not yet combat encounters have a little bit more leeway. That's where stuff like skill challenges and whatnot tend to come in a bit more. And they had a little bit more rules stuff in them just for how encounters go. But then that exploration was extremely freeform and just the characters, the players say what they want to do, and you kind of tell them, okay, roll this, and we'll figure it out, kind of thing. So there was sort of a staggered importance of rules.
Yeah. I see. And also explain the core mechanics, which again is one of the meritorious things from actually 3.5 that they carried over into fourth. So it is, for most things, D20, roll high, add stuff, compare to number. By add stuff, I mean almost always add half your level. For fucking reasons.
Half your level and some stat modifier on usually virtually everything.
Yeah. But yeah, and the three basic rules there: simple rules, many exceptions, is less a basic rule, more the entire design ethos of 4th edition D&D. And quite frankly, it's actually a very good one they mostly stick to. Where I don't think they stick the landing very well is in the actual character design proper, and we'll get into that later. But as far as just how they built the system out, they built the system out in a very solid way. The core mechanics and everything is actually a pretty simple skeleton that is easy enough to grok. It helps, again, you have a really simple core mechanic, which is, I grab this 20-sided die, roll it, look for a big number, yay.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, again, we'll talk about it as we go, but I was kind of talking a little bit as we were getting started on stream, as we were getting everything prepped. It is interesting coming back to fourth ed in hindsight, now that we have fifth ed, and seeing how much of the design of fourth ed really ends up being very obviously sort of almost prototyping for what became fifth ed, because fifth ed also draws a lot from that very simple design with exceptions as needed. But I think fifth ed nailed it better with the actual balance of those simple mechanics and how they go. Again, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
When we talk about fucking why fourth ed just never feels like you've ever actually progressed. But
there's a bit of that too, yes.
But yeah, like a lot of this stuff carried over design ethos wise into fifth ed, but just works better there because they seem to, now that they nailed the basis, then they kind of went in and goes, okay, now how do we make those little, finagly bits feel better? I think is the big thing, is that fourth ed feels bland. It feels bad, even though even though mechanically it is quite good.
Yes. Yeah, and also the specific beats general. This is rule of basically every game that has ever existed. If somebody tells you how it works and it breaks the normal rules, it works that way. Shut up.
Asterisk, any competent RPG.
Yes. And finally, the desires are still bad at math.
Yeah,
we're
still
rounding
always
down
round
fractions.
down. Always round down. Fucking Christ.
They fixed this in 5th edition. Finally, it only takes them until 2014. Took you more than 12 years since you got the D&D license. I don't fucking know.
Start a very long time.
Yeah. All right, on to chapter 2, making characters. All right, so character building here. The usual race, class, details, shopping, etc. is what you do when you build a character. Point bounty now goes up in price at the points where it matters, unlike in 3.5. So you're actually going to pay more points for your 14, your 16, and your 18, i.e. the stats that actually matter in D&D.
Interestingly, that again, just to draw comparisons to current edition of 5th ed, being able to point by up to an 18 in a stat is interesting because 5th ed doesn't allow for that, but 5th ed also has much lower stat caps.
5th ed is more bound when it comes to your stat cap is 20, and you can only start at you can buy up to a 15, and then up to is it buy up to a?
It's up to a 15.
Yeah, it's up to a 15, and you can have up to a +2 from
species stuff or background now. It was species in 2014. Now it's background. Yeah. So the max you start with, generally speaking, is a 17.
Yeah.
Whereas in 4th ed, it was not uncommon to have a 20 in your primary.
Yeah.
Start.
Yeah, it was. That's pretty much what you were going for, is to have a 20 in your primary. Your secondary mattered a little bit less, but you still wanted a decent amount. Hey, case. 4th ed has style character roles assigned to each class, which would be fine if each person was building an entire party of characters. Unfortunately, they're building a single character in an RPG. Where
it works a lot better if you actually have something like a session 0, or you're playing with a group you've played with a ton, and so you can kind of go, "Hey guys, I'm thinking of doing this. Are we gonna have? Are we gonna have? A leader? Are we going to have a striker? If not, I can change up what I'm planning on doing." So it works better either it would work if each person was creating a party, or if the party is created in communication with each other and created intentionally to fill those roles.
It is, but at the same time, there's sometimes it comes the issue where no one ever wants to play the leader, so the last guy out is always playing the leader or stuff like that.
I mean, you say that. I will point out, we'll get to it later when we talk about the classes in depth, but Warlord actually rules.
I love Warlord too.
Like Warlord
that
fucking
does
rules.
Actually help.
Yeah.
But different people have different tastes. I can't actually say if no one has a taste for Ranger, Rogue, or Warlock, you're not going to have any strikers. Combats are going to be even longer, which is also something I didn't actually directly write in this book, but I can mention right now. They actually did fuck up kind of the math initially when it came to the first book and monster manual, in the sense that nothing hit all that hard and everything had too many hit points, so you were playing padded sumo. So it makes it that much worse if no one has or no one is a striker who are built to do more damage slightly. So it makes the combat take that much longer in what is already a tactical combat system, which by its nature just takes longer to do combat. Also, this book only has one controller character, the wizard. So if you wanted to play a controller, or if you wanted a controller in your party at all, and you didn't have a wizard, tough luck.
It is not the only instance of wizard being unique in some ways, which is extremely notable in this edition.
Yes, it is. But we'll get into that when we get into the wizard section. Also, ability scores here. So they're important as they were in previous editions, but actually less individually so. I'll be honest, I actually like ability scores more in this edition than even 5th. So all of them affect certain skills and can add to a defense, and notably "can" is the operative word there. So defenses are effectively the equivalent of, or fort reflex and will defense are the equivalent of fort reflex and will saves. They just reverse the dice basically. You're rolling to attack their defense rather than they make a save. But the idea is exactly the same. It's just the d20s and someone else is in the opposite hands. Uh, the difference here is your fortitude isn't tied to your con; it's tied to either your strength or con, whichever is higher. Same with reflex being tied to your dex or int, and will is tied to your wisdom or charisma. So if you tank one, it's not actually that bad.
Yeah, you can get away with it a little bit more, and it helps decrease the priority and importance, particularly of dexterity, but also of con and wisdom, which was very prevalent. Even if they weren't primary stats for your class in third ed and 3.5, you still didn't want to tank them because they were very important for your saves.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like you can get away with having a character that has a 20 strength and like a 10 con. There's going to be some faults to it, but your fortitude defense is still going to be fine.
Yeah, you still have to have one or the other that isn't tanked, but it's less stats that you have to overly worry about, and they still do contribute to certain things. And pretty much they list right there. So strength contributes to melee basic attacks. This only really matters if you're charging, which we'll get into later. Constitution, again, Constitution actually does hit points, but it is nowhere near as vital as it was in the previous editions, where a good chunk of your hit points in previous editions would come from your Constitution modifier.
Yeah, this is
multiplied
just you
over
get
several levels.
You get your score once at the beginning, and then it doesn't matter ever again.
Yeah. The bonus is used for the amount of healing surges you have, which is another mechanic we'll get into later, but it's not as important, and you always have a flat, decent amount. Yeah, dexterity dexterity is unique. Well, has two unique things. One is range basic attack, which matters for practically nothing. Matters for precisely one class that makes other people do basic attacks, and it adds to initiative. You have to use dex for initiative, but beyond that, the only other advantage it really has is the skills it adds to. But that's the same with all of them. Dex just has more good skills that it adds to. Strength and con don't really have much in the way of skills. Strength is athletics, con is endurance, but intelligence is pretty much just pure skills. Same with wisdom and charisma. Actually, it's just the skills they add to. It's just intelligence, wisdom, and charisma cover good amount of skills. Wisdom covers some of the best skills, or one of the best, or covers the best skill in the game. Perception.
Also worth noting that intelligence can be applied as a bonus to your armor class.
Yes, it can.
So it actually helps a lot, again, for like a wizard, or like an int based class. You don't also have to get dex to not get fucking hit by everything under the sun. You actually get to add your int to your armor class in a lot of instances, and so it just makes it adds. I say helps, but that also in a lot of ways contributes to what you were talking about, where it's padded sumo.
Yes,
because it's like, oh, they swing, they miss, I swing, I miss. It's like,
well, next round. And unlike in 3.5, there ain't a ton you can actually do to modify these numbers all that positively. This is kind of the reason why it was important to start with a 20, because that's about it you could do. You could start with a 20. That will give you the maximum possible to hit at level 1. There's no other things that up it by much.
Yeah, you gradually increase them as you level, which we'll get into. And there are some magical items that will increase stats by a bit, but magic items are their own thing. We'll talk about later.
No, they don't have stat magic items in 4th.
I believe there's still manuals.
There might be manuals, but if there are manuals, they're not in this book.
No, they're not in base book.
Okay,
that was later stuff, but I'm pretty sure the manuals did eventually get added.
Okay,
because
I'll run into them later if we find them. But
the other thing you may notice is the ability modifiers table there, which does go on table up to 33, and then just say and so on, because it is a pretty straightforward formula. That is, if we're being honest, mostly for monster stat calculations. Again, players are, even with all the stuff by the tail end of 4th ed and various things that got added, mid 20s is about the best you could ever expect a stat to get to.
And I'm going to say this a lot, so I might as well cover this now. In this edition, I will call things primary and secondary stats. The primary stat is whatever the hell you're using to actually attack. Yeah. A lot of abilities will also key off of a secondary stat for one thing or another, like how many squares you push something, the duration of a buff or debuff, stuff like that.
Unless you're a wizard.
Yes, we'll get into that later. Okay, Also, the 5 alignments, stripped down from the 9 alignments we had in the previous edition, and not to be confused with the early edition of 5 alignments, which did the corner alignments in neutral, because early D&D had several systems before they just settled into
The 9, yeah.
9. But yeah, alignment no longer matters mechanically as a 4th edition, so this is pure flavor, which makes the lack of the Air 4 choices even odder. And it's one of the things that makes 4th edition feel a little bit off from D&D. Though strangely enough, this actually kind of keys to the earliest alignment system, which was the 3 alignment system of law, neutral, and chaos.
Yes, because even though they call it good, it is actually chaotic good. Even though they call it evil, it is actually lawful evil.
Yeah. Technically, neutral would be in the same bandwagon, but it's like, who the fuck cares at a certain point? Again, since alignment doesn't actually mechanically matter for anything, it doesn't actually, the definitions don't need to be as hard as they needed to be in previous editions.
And yeah, notably there as well, this is entirely optional to a certain extent. Like technically, if you don't choose an alignment, you're considered to be unaligned. But if you actually read in the text there, it outright says like you don't even have to choose an alignment. So technically, you don't even choose unaligned. You just don't have an alignment.
Yeah. Also notable, the word neutral doesn't exist anywhere here. So strangely enough, unaligned is the one thing that, the other ones obviously carry over, but unaligned actually does carry over 5th edition. There's also neutral in 5th edition. Unaligned is basically, it's an animal, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it does not have the kind of sapience that would give it an alignment.
Yeah. All right. D&D is a 4th edition. Yeah, they actually have new ones. And this is a weird mix of new ones, old ones, and stuff we decided to pull in from
Various settings.
So
we'll talk primarily about the new ones. I think the old ones have existed in one way or another. We won't talk much about the ones that were in 3.5, basically.
Yeah, basically. So Avandra, the God of Change, is new to this book and also was in 5th edition. Let's see. That one was freedom, trade, travel, adventure. Strangely enough, this one carried over in the 5th edition. They did previously have a different God of Travel.
Yes.
That I'll be damned if I remember the name of. I don't remember this one either. So I guess I don't know that they all hit just about as well.
One thing that I do want to point out that's interesting on this, and it's not one of the gods we're going to talk about because Corellon's been around for fucking ever.
Yes.
But it is worth noting that Corellon is an unaligned god.
Yes. Corellon is in every other edition chaotic good.
Yeah, but just the fact that there are and I mean we'll talk about it because some of the new gods are also unaligned. But the fact that there are just gods that are not associated with the alignment at all, they are unaligned gods, kind of ties into that whole. There's no actual mechanics to alignment in this game.
No, there isn't. But yeah, Corellon and the elves in general are much more tied to the Feywild, which is also sort of new in this game. The name Feywild, I guess, is sort of new in this game, but the concept basically existed. I forget exactly what they called it in previous editions, but it is basically the idealistic natural reflection of the world type of thing, where all the Fey are. But yeah, it is akin, sort of akin to not the astral plane, the other one, but it's basically a close dimension that overlaps roughly with the actual material plane. Also, Bahamut is here. He's still Bahamut. There's not really much of a change there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arathis is our new god, the god of Civ 4, also from this book, and he's in 5th edition.
We have Urbanus / Moradin at home.
Yes. It's the same portfolio as Urbanus. She just doesn't look as cool as Urbanus does.
Which is also roughly the same portfolio as Moradin, just not directly associated with dwarves.
Yes. Also, Ion, as in the Ion Stones. He is the god of floating rocks, also new in this book, and he's actually in 5th. Literally, his name comes from Ion Stones. It is not the other way around.
Yeah, Ion Stones have been around for almost the entirety of D&D, but there was never any actual background to that name other than they thought it sounded cool, essentially.
Yeah. And
now they made it the god of knowledge.
Yeah.
Which tracks with what they kind of do.
Yeah. I also like to be watchful at all times of followers of Vecna, the evil knowledge god.
Yeah, it's... Ion is the god of knowledge for the benefit of civilization, and Vecna is essentially the god of knowledge to keep secret and gain power.
Yeah. Let's see. Cord still continues, still strength god.
Yeah.
pretty much what he sounds like.
Cord is unchanged.
Cord is unchanged. Melora, God of the Wilds and Seas, another new one that carries on. Also, the only wilderness deity in this book, except also water.
Very wild.
Yeah, there is Moradin, who has been relegated to specifically the aspects of creation and artisans. But again, in original stuff, Moradin was also like the god of civilization and cities.
Yep. Pelor, also here for the goody two-shoes. So you can be more goody two-shoes. Also sun.
Because nobody wants to be Gimbal.
Yep.
And if you get that, you've been on the internet way too fucking long.
The Raven Queen, god of the deed, and she's very anti-undead.
Actually, probably one of my favorite new additions to the Pantheon out of 4th Ed, and definitely one of the most notable ones.
Yeah, and she's directly tied to the Shadowfell, which does originate in this edition.
Yep. Sort of.
Sort of. Again, the Plane of Shadow has existed, but this is more directly tying. The Shadowfell is almost literally a dark reflection of the Feywild, where it is the world, but more dark and edgy and whatever. And we can also stick Castle Ravenloft in here without having to have the Demi-Plate of Dread if you don't want to deal with that nonsense, which is completely fair, actually. If you were just trying to have like, hey, let's go to Castle Ravenloft. How the fuck did they get out? Also, Orcus is trying to steal her job. Constantly. Let's see. And Sihani there has
Moon goddess.
It's the other elf god, actually. It's Corlin's wife, effectively.
Yeah.
No.
Saying it. So what you're probably thinking of is Selûne.
Yeah.
Selûne is specific to Forgotten Realms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Selûne is basically Sayanine of Forgotten Realms, but they are different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sayanine is actually the Greyhawk one, if I remember correctly.
And the evil deities. Asmodeus now has been promoted to God of Tyranny. No one tells Argon.
Yeah, so they made Asmodeus an actual full-on god, not just a demon prince.
They also pulled Bane, the God of Tyranny, from Forgotten Realms into this setting.
but because Asmodeus is the god of tyranny, the twink got demoted.
Yep. Okay, it depends on the artistic interpretation. He's either a twink or an evil green genie.
Both?
But as with any deity, every god has like 5 or 6 different domains, so they just kind of shoved Bane into his war and conquest domains rather than being tyranny specifically.
Yeah.
It just becomes really funny because, I mean, Bane, as for the most part, exists as the like aspect of Bane being the whole focus of like the Dead Three.
Yeah.
Which is like murder, tyranny, and death.
Murder. Why is there a line through tyranny here?
Yeah.
Other evil deities, Grummish, god of the hordes and hordes of uncopyrighted orcs free in the public domain. Loth, I did a whole fucking book on this. She's the drow god.
Loth.
Go look at go watch our Drow of the Underdark book if you want more information. Yep.
Goddess of Drow. No, there's no other god of Drow. Don't ask. Shut up.
There are actually several drow gods.
Yes, there's a ton of drow gods, but for some reason, only anybody only thinks of Loth.
In fairness, Loth.
Yeah,
she's
usually the primary one, but it's like there are plenty of other gods and goddesses of the drow.
Yes, there are
the
also
more interesting one being the actual gods of the drow, considering the matriarchal society. But
yeah, and they're all subservient to Loth, so that's the other thing about them.
Yeah.
Tiamat. Continues to exist.
Tiamat.
The
Bahamut's here, so we have to have Tiamat.
Torog, if you told me Torog would be here the whole time, I would have believed you. I don't fucking know, remember, or care. But yeah, he's actually new. Underdark evil god, basically.
Yeah, he Torog is the god of all the non-drow Underdark stuff, basically.
Yep.
Say, is there a good Underdark?
No.
How do you mention that?
Denizens of the Underdark will worship other gods, including some of the good gods, but there is not a good god specifically of the Underdark.
Okay.
Yeah, the closest I can think of is Moradin, the dwarf god, because
The dwarves interact with the Underdark a lot, yes.
But yeah, as you go deeper, there aren't any good races, so you're dealing with Dwaragar, who worship the god of no fun.
Swarfneblin, who worship money mostly.
Yes. At least they're a non-evil race.
Yeah, they're neutral. Yeah.
Yeah. Illithids, who worship their gigantic brains, basically.
Yeah. Elder brains.
Yep. Vecna, who will actually stop being a god after this decision, strangely enough. And I mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. Vecna is actually an anagram for Vance. Jack Vance is actually the author of the Dying Earth series, where Vancian magic comes from, which is the least important thing in this edition because I already have Vancian magic. But
yeah, well, the other thing too about Vecna is it varies wildly between and sometimes even within editions whether Vecna is a god or just a really powerful lich.
Yep. And Zahir here, the evil god of darkness, poisons, assassins, snakes, and Zahir is Turkish for poison, and he's new despite what I said is I swear to fucking God I've encountered this evil god before somewhere.
So the reason it feels like that is because it is actually based on a much older version of the Yuan Ti god.
That makes sense.
Different name, but it is very much like almost everything about Zahir, like profile wise, domains, and even like personality wise, is based on the god of the Yuan Ti that for at least a couple editions was nameless and was just the god of the Yuan Ti.
That makes sense. One of the other evils was effectively doing an impersonation of it as well. I forget which one it was. It was not named Zahir either. But that's neither here nor there. Right. So the math of checks. So again, as we went over earlier, always adds half your level to checks, and you always add half your levels. Always add to all the defenses itself. And what the fuck are we doing here? What the hell's the point of that?
Numbers need to go up.
It's all for challenge rating math. That's the actual real reason for it. If something is challenge rating +5, the numbers are effectively going to make it that much harder to hit, and it's going to make it that much easier for them to hit you for the challenge rating math to actually work out, because it certainly works out to your party. Okay, no, it certainly totally works out to your party. We're also doing this with skill checks. Don't fucking ask. I'll go over into the DM's guide, but the DM's guide is subject to some of the dumbest tables I've ever seen when it comes to challenge rating for skill checks, because it is just like, here's an escalating difficulty for locks. You could just not do this.
Yeah, so that contributes a lot to it. And again, we'll talk more about it when we get to the actual like DC stuff in the DMG. But that contributes a lot to what I was talking about earlier, how it never feels like you actually make any progress in 4th Ed, because the game, like, if you're a good DM, you know enough to like design it well and not necessarily do this. But again, coming at this with the assumption that this is your first RPG, this is the first stuff you're DMing, this is the first thing you're playing, the DMG very much encourages you to like, use these lines and make sure to like escalate these numbers along the way so things remain, challenging for your players to keep them interested and like looking to advance. And it's like, okay, but if I advance and nothing ever actually gets easier, it doesn't feel like I'm fucking advancing.
Yeah.
The only time it happens is if you happen to like end up like, we spent a bunch of time fighting like goblins and orcs, 10 sessions ago, and now we're fighting goblins again, and all of a sudden they're easier, except the DMG pretty much explicitly says, like, don't do that. Don't do that. No. Give them the higher stuff, the harder stuff. Don't let them ever feel like they've actually gotten more powerful.
You can throw the easier stuff at them in swarms, but it effectively self-obsoletes itself. Once you're 10 levels over the creatures, they basically are entirely pointless to throw player characters. It's like, they'll immediately slaughter them without even rolling dice in combat. Who cares?
Like the counter to that is what they did with 5th Ed, where you have bounded accuracy.
Yeah.
You can still throw a CR1 creature into a fight with CR10s. He's going to get slaughtered the second he gets hit.
Yeah.
But he can still do something effective.
But he can still hit.
Yeah. He can still hit. His damage is still fairly relevant.
Yeah.
Special abilities he might have are still going to do
relevant.
something. Yeah.
I also point out that Shiv has been here the whole time.
Of course. Very quiet.
Yes. But for more on encounter design, I actually go over it a bit in Action Economics Theory and Practice, because I might as well show my own videos, or continue to show my own videos. I might even go into it in more depth. But challenge rating is basically the beginning of learning about, or learning encounter design. You actually kind of need to get a feel for your group before you can really find decent encounters for them.
Yeah, because it's not. It is not a purely formulaic thing. It really does have a lot to do with the kind of players you have, the kind of characters they build, what they're looking for to get out of a game.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and all of that really factors in. It's part of why actually being somebody who like DMs for like pickup groups is such an insanely difficult skill to build.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to kind of read the group very quickly and adapt on the fly the stuff you're
also
doing.
Just building encounters that a party can handle. Because you could have stuff like, okay, this particular party has no good AoE damage in it.
Yeah,
Like, just everyone's like big single target. So if you do throw a fight full of easily squishable minions, like fourth that has minions specifically,
They're still only going to take. They're still only going to
They're
take
still
out
killing
so
one
many.
around.
Yeah, so many around.
Because if no one ran the wizard, the only controller in this book, you don't really have much in the way of AoEs.
you don't
Yeah,
have any way to take out
you have
masses of enemies.
a striker that might be able to deal with one, possibly two if they've got the correct power.
So you can easily go
You've
from
got
encounter
a
that-
defender or a leader that might be able to take out one if they roll well.
Yeah. So you can easily go from I built an encounter that I'm expecting to take 3 or 4 rounds of combat because we have one character who can wipe out the minions while the other characters deal with bigger, tougher stuff. To this combat has now ballooned to like 10 plus rounds because they're running around squatting minions one swing at a time.
Well, let's be honest. This is fifth ed or fourth ed. It's going to take 10 rounds anyways because everything has 85,000 HP.
Not minions. Minions specifically take one hit and die.
Yeah. I will also point out they do at least fix that later to their credit. Later monster manuals are much more, everything does more damage, it has less hit points.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
one of the things I do like about fourth ed is the whole concept of the minion.
Yeah,
which is
mini
it
monsters
gets
is a
hit and
good
dies.
thing.
It fails to save, it dies.
Yeah.
All right.
It does allow you to throw just absolute hordes of monsters at your players without having to be like, well, every goblin has 6 HP, and like so you got to you rolled 4 HP. Too
He's
bad
still
he's
around.
still up.
Tabletop.
Right.
Pretty much.
So advancement. At least you get at least one choice every level. You get a ton of choices at level 1, obviously, because you're building the character. But you're getting at least one of something. You're getting at least a power. You're getting a feed. You're getting something. And play is divided up into 4 tiers: heroic, which is 1 through 10; paragon, which is 11 through 20; and epic, which is 21 through 30.
So yeah, base game goes all the way to 30th level, a thing which is absolutely unique to the addition of fourth ed.
No, I got away with that. The 4 may be a typo there.
What are you talking about?
I mean, that's okay. On the last slide, we were talking about challenge ratings.
I wasn't gonna say it.
One thing I will say, if you like the look of this table, soak it in, because this is the same table for no matter what class you're playing.
Yes.
Each class does not have individual advancement. This is what your advancement is, no matter what class you are playing. We mentioned previously a little bit about sort of the genericization of classes. This is one of the cores of it. Is no matter what class you're getting, like the powers you have access to are different. But when you get ish. Yeah. But they have different names, use different stats, sometimes have different secondary effects.
There's different mechanical themes from class to class, but they're not always all that distinct.
At its core, no matter what class you are playing, you will get a utility power and a feat at level 2, an encounter attack power at level 3, so on and so forth. There is no unique mechanics that are gained through advancement based on your class, essentially.
Yeah.
Like I like seeing a table where you actually get something on every single level. I would just like one for each class and for them to be unique to the class.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are things here that I'm perfectly fine with all classes. EXP being the same for all classes, I'm perfectly fine
Oh, yeah,
with.
absolutely.
XP
Ability scores going up at the same rate, that's perfectly fine.
Feats getting earned
Yeah.
the same rate.
Feats getting earned the same rate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, the only way your ability scores really go up, and this is why there's a primary. This enforces the primary secondary stat paradigm, because it specifically increases 2 stats most of the time, with the exception of levels 11 and 21, where
you get
it
one
increases everything.
Yeah, every time you go up a tier, essentially.
Yeah. It's also why you only really want to focus on 2 stats, because only 2 stats are ever going to increase.
You can technically spread it out because it's not always locked into the same 2. But
why would you?
I mean, certain very strange builds.
You're trying to have 2 different secondary stats, which you can kind of sort of get away with because you're still hitting and doing things. It's just these secondary effects will be lesser.
Yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, you definitely want to always increase your primary stat regardless,
Yes.
because the math of the game is very rigid. And you are basically every +1 that you do not grab is a 5% chance your turn was wasted.
Yep.
Let's see. All right, on to character races, which honestly mean more probably in this edition than it does in any edition previous or since. So Dragonborn here will be our example based on the fact that they are the first in alphabetical order and are very much new to this edition. So these are kind of sort of along based on the idea of the Dragonborn of Bahamut, except they're just divorced from Bahamut. They are just straight up Dragonborn of all colors.
Yeah, so they are this is, as I mentioned, the implementation of them as a core race, which has continued into fifth edition. Dragonborn are a base species in fifth ed as well, to the point where Dragonborn were in the rules for the 2024 rules update for fifth ed, and half elves weren't.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea of how core a species Dragonborn have become.
Yeah.
To appease the skate.
I mean, it's because
they're
they're an
cool.
actual interesting, unique thing.
Ignoring
They are also, yeah.
Also putting the filthy happies in
Yeah. More aside, they are just neat. Ignoring internet fetishes. But yeah, and they're also very much a straight example of how races are entirely built here. So +2 to 2 stats, which if you're trying to build a character will be your primary and secondary stat. They know 2 languages. Sometimes that's played with a little bit. They get +2 to 2 skills. They have 1 to 15 racial abilities, 1 racial encounter power. Default size is like medium, speed 6, and vision is normal. This is a loose and fast template, but this is basically what you can grok from looking at a bunch of different races. Basically, they don't really break too much outside of this formula, especially the +2 to 2 stats. There's literally 1 exception.
So,
As an aside, because this actually happened with the 3.5 players manual, I did almost accidentally omit the human slide again. I did catch it this time.
No, please.
so the first thing I really note, speed is reduced.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about before, is that it is very much designed to be played with battle mats, with miniatures. Again, somewhat based on business decisions overriding necessarily design decisions, because Wizards was pushing very heavily to try and increase their share of the miniatures market at this time, and push very heavily into their actual tabletop miniatures wargame, which doubled as giving you minis for D&D stuff, because it was obviously all based on D&D stuff. So it's like, oh, you got this box, and now you have an adult green dragon that you can use for the wargame, but also for actual D&D.
Yeah, fourth ed was coming out right around when D&D minis was really tried.
Yeah, because it had started in 3.5, but 3.5 it was very much a like, hey, we're sort of testing the waters, and then throughout pretty much the entire life of fourth ed was when they were really trying very hard to push it. And to its credit, it did have a pretty big popularity jump for a while there.
I played in special D&D minis tournaments, and we actually, myself and another friend of the group, would basically go up to LA twice a month to go play with a particular group that included basically the best D&D minis player in the world. Like they're like
the world tournaments,
multiple times.
Yeah. So it was pretty big. I mean, it never reached the size of like actual dedicated tabletop war game.
Died off at this point,
and it has died off. But for a while there, it was getting a pretty big boost.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah. As I said, in this edition, race matters a lot more than pretty much any of the other editions, partially because you desperately want your stats to overlap with the stats
of your class.
Both of them, actually. And because encounter power, or every race has an encounter power tied to it, and they're usually minor actions, so you're absolutely going to use them basically every fight.
Yeah.
Like, this Dragon Breath will absolutely come up because it's a minor action, you might as well do it.
Which we'll talk about more when we get to the actual breakdown of action economy.
Yep. All right. Dwarves. Now slightly less nerf speed. So instead of having minus 10 feet to speed, they only have minus 5 feet to speed.
Effectively, yeah.
Also 14 less abilities than the previous edition.
Cool.
That's not an exaggeration. That's fine. No one remembers anything beyond the +2 to saves versus spells.
Oh, but I got like a +1 to attacks against goblins and
like
+4 dodge AC against
and a
giants.
+2 on this skill if I'm looking at stonework, like craft if I'm looking at stonework.
And I got an automatic chance to detect like hidden doors in stone. I think I had like a +2 to saves against poison.
It is really worth noting that so fucking many of those abilities are holdovers from literally like first edition D&D or like early basic rules D&D where dwarf was a class.
Yeah. Yes. Also, they get to use second wind as a minor action. It's normally an
action.
It's normally a
Standard action.
Instead of gaining it as an encounter power, this is about the same thing as gaining an encounter power, honestly.
And they continue to have the ability to move at full speed even when encumbered, which matters if you're the kind of psychopath that actually plays with encumbrance rules.
Yeah. No, when encumbered or when in heavy armor. It matters for heavy armor.
Yeah,
heavy armor is -1 speed.
It matters for heavy armor. It does not matter for encumbrance. Only psychopaths play with actual encumbrance rules. Yes. Jesus fucking Christ. Interesting note, for various and sundry reasons, talking about rule stuff, I was looking back at second ed and first ed AD&D rules earlier this week. And even as far back as second ed, encumbrance was actually an optional rule.
Yeah,
I would basically only make a party deal with encumbrance if it's like extenuating circumstances.
Like you're traveling across a desert or like,
oh, you are trying to move a ridiculously heavy statue that there's no reason your characters be able to easily.
Yeah.
You're encumbered while doing that.
That's okay. I'll just put it in our bag of holding.
Yeah.
I assume you're able to carry all the stuff you have on your character without being so overweight that you were slowed down by doing so.
Yeah.
In most situations.
As I think I've mentioned previously several times, it is best used as a metaphorical rules cudgel where, hey, if you're going to do something stupid, here's the rules cudgel. Please, I don't want to do the math and you don't want to do the math. Don't do anything stupid, please.
Also, if you want to use the response.
Coin weight, worn equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll count coin weight if the party wants to try and like move a vault worth of gold.
Yeah, a million GP. Yes,
but,
I will factor that
general
weight
money
in.
your character has, I'm not worried about.
Yeah.
And I can promise you, as somebody who has spent an entire day wearing a suit of plate mail, you don't feel it after the first 5 minutes or so.
No.
It's so evenly across your body.
Yeah. And, plate mail, this may surprise you, was designed to be fucking worn by people.
In combat situations where they need to be able to move, usually pretty fucking quickly.
Move and fight.
Yeah. All right. Eladrin. Elves have been split into two races here. This is the hoity-toity, magic-y, high elfy.
Yeah, these are high elves.
Yeah, these are the high elves. They're the one. Yeah, their minor action itself is just a teleport, which is actually great.
This does sort of develop further because Eladrin sort of end up becoming sort of epitomize the more fey aspect of elves.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
I mean,
that is Lunk and Zolda. Thank you.
I mean, that's fine. Link and Zelda are basically just elves anyway.
They are. They're Hylian elves. They actually are elves.
Yes.
I meant design-wise. That's Link. That's Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lunk and Zelda.
Yep. Elf, the woodsy elf slash Legolas. Nobly has faster movement. They actually have a speed of 7 squares.
Yeah, they technically, officially are still quote unquote Fey. They have like the Fey origin stuff, but it is very much a case of elf is more wood elf and more sort of terrestrial and combative, and Eladrin is more high elf magic-y.
Yeah.
And definitely more closely tied to like the Feywild stuff.
Yep. Half elf. His encounter power is an at-will power from another class. Otherwise, they're underwhelming as usual.
Korvar.
Yeah, Korvar are just better half elves, but
basically
by design. This is the actual issue of like, okay, so half elf, so we'll just take like half of elf and half of human and shove them together. What do you mean you took the least interesting halves of both races?
It's also this weird, again, very long holdover of, for some reason, half elf is like the primary half race that has existed through most of Dungeons and Dragons. Half orc occasionally exists, but sometimes doesn't. But I understand, because 5th Ed, for those that don't know, has very much tried to move away from having half races to the point where, again, in base 2024 rules update, half elf isn't even a race. They didn't add it until they released the Eberron supplement, where they are their own distinct thing called Korrivar. And just like I get it, because why are there half elves and not half
Half
dwarves, half halfling? Like, it's just weird to have.
And they also it's also always half one thing and human, and not
Yeah.
half
Yes.
X and Y.
Unless you get to that,
It's humans fuck everything.
unless you get to that extremely bizarre but highly entertaining third-party book,
Oh,
Bastards and Bloodlines.
We will not be talking about that, though. We will be talking about other stuff done by Dreamscard Press.
why won't we be talking about? We want to know about the half elf, half birds.
In fairness, that was not initially by Dreamsguard. Dreamsguard took it over for the updated version. It was originally a Green Ronin book,
Fair enough.
which is also why it's fucking insane.
And all the other, this is just a regular race who fucked an animal. Here you go.
This is also ability that is deceptively a little bit better than you would think it is, because if you're not doing a controller, your at will power can actually be like an AOE at will power, which is great when you're dealing with things that have a bunch of minions which just have one hit point anyways, and you're just trying to hit a bunch of things at the same time.
It's okay. It's just not interesting.
It's okay. It's just not interesting. Yeah. Halflings no longer receiving a penalty to speed for reasons. Though small is now just a penalty rather than a trade-off. In previous editions, being a small, or in 3.5 specifically, being a small size is like +1 to AC and attack rolls basically. But you're easier to any combat maneuver against as a trade-off. And that was about it, I think, for 3.5. For 3.0, weapon sizes were an issue, but
Yes.
I think that stopped being a thing. But yeah,
3.5 has weapons as well.
yeah. Well, weapon size isn't a direct thing in 3.5. It was
You have
weird.
small weapons and medium, large
Or,
weapons.
yeah, you did have small, medium, and large weapons. The weapons themselves weren't divided into
No.
sizes.
No, they didn't do like, daggers are a
Right.
medium
Medium
weapon
weapon.
for you.
No.
Yeah.
Like they did in 3.5. Just
Or
you have a
3.0,
dagger, doesn't
yeah.
D3 as well.
It's one of those things that got cleaned up in 3.5 from 3.0. But yeah, being a small size, you can't use a two-handed weapon such as a greatsword, halberds, and
Anything that's
versatile
versatile is a
two-handed
two-handed weapon for
to
you.
Yeah.
That's all small does.
Yeah.
That's it.
So if you don't plan on using a two-handed weapon of any sort or a versatile weapon, you're good.
Gee, almost like they still really designed halflings to be primarily rogues.
Yeah, go figure.
Dodge.
Human, kind of bad actually in this edition. It's the only race that gets gets a single +2 to a stat.
You do get to choose which stat, which makes them a little bit more versatile. But again, why would you not just choose
Choose
a race that
gives
has
you
+2 to your
full
to your
stats you care
primary and
about.
your secondary?
The bonus feat isn't what it was in previous editions because you get a feat every other level, and there's not massive feat chains or feat chains, so you don't have it doesn't let
you jump ahead.
jump ahead a decent amount. Yeah. Extra at will power from your class instead of an encounter power, which is also just not good. I mean, you're taking your third best at will power. Who
Because
cares?
you already took your 2 best.
Yeah, and in general, I mean, we'll get into it when we get into the class breakdowns, but also, again, because you're going to have primarily one primary and one secondary stat, there's usually not 3 at-will powers that tie into what you're good at.
You also technically get a bonus skill, but I also haven't mentioned much
Skill
of
training
anything else.
that makes no fucking difference.
No, it doesn't.
No,
it's inside the cloak.
It's inside the cloak. It's
The art gets cut off where the foot would be because of the curve of the thing. It's
Yeah, she's taking like a step forward, but her back foot is in the cloak, and their cloak is like a
I
edge
mean,
of the.
it's
edge
much
of
the
the
same
artwork.
way where the guy's arc cuts off at his hip. That's
yeah.
yeah. It's like, I assure you, he has kidneys.
Yes. Tiefling. Okay, they have a new origin. They're descendants of humans who bargain with the dark powers rather than being bloodline descendants of beings of one sort or another. Also, they no longer have a tendency towards evil. That's about it.
I don't, again, not having been present for the D&D and Hindsight stuff for 3.5, which also presumably talks somewhat about 3.0. I don't know if this was covered, but that's also entirely a 3rd edition thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
2nd edition Tieflings were just an outsider. It wasn't even necessarily fiends or fiends or devils.
Oh, okay.
It was explicitly anyone that had like ancestry that was an outsider was considered a Tiefling. Like, that's what the term was
Interesting.
used for.
Yeah, I didn't.
Like, Azamar were a specific thing outside of that, but if you were like partially like fire elemental, you were a Tiefling.
Yeah, I tend to just stick with what's in the books directly, and occasionally would cover previous edition stuff if it mattered
Yeah.
much or something, but not always for trivia. But yeah, I tend to try and stick to what's in books I'm properly covering at the moment. But
Yeah, them being more solidified as generally more like demonic or dark powered or fiendish, I think works and allows for more derivation and kind of spread out more because now we can have Genasi and Azamar and all this other stuff. But yeah, originally just anyone that was descended from an outsider was a tiefling.
yeah, and this opens up character concepts anyways to
Yeah.
have tieflings be what they are in this edition. I actually like the reflavoring in general. Okay, now on to character classes, of which we have less than I think in any other player's handbook. Okay, that's not true. Well, less than any player's handbook since second edition.
Second edition technically had a lot of them. It was just they were all subclasses.
Yeah.
Also, here we see an adventuring party being attacked by a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
That is just straight up a fucking blue eyes white dragon.
No,
Yeah.
clearly doesn't have blue eyes.
That's
No,
okay.
it's
The
like a
blue eyes white
black eye.
dragon doesn't have
It's
blue eyes.
Shadow.
I don't think the blue eyes white dragon really has blue eyes much.
I mean,
you
they're,
definitely get
they're,
the white.
they're like glowing.
Yeah. All right. So, section starts off with how to read a power. Which will mostly be skipping for the combat section, except for the keywords. Most are just tags, but a couple have rules attached to them. So, yeah, like things will have tags like fear or conjuration or whatever, which kind of gives you a vague idea of what it does, and sometimes will be referenced by other stuff later. But the two tags that actually matter are reliable, which you don't expend this power if you miss with it. It's usually attached to daily powers, and stance, which lasts for the encounter or 5 minutes outside of combat, or until you use another stance. You can basically be in one stance at a time. It's reminiscent kind of the stances in Book of Nine Swords, except more limited. All right, so the first class here, and our example, by a virtue of coming first in alphabetical order, clerk. Its primary stats are either wisdom or strength, your choice, and its secondary stats are charisma and or wisdom. Just to be weird.
All right. Primary.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can actually do
Reliable.
that.
Yeah. Okay, so I believe anything that uses strength as a primary attack, wisdom as its
Use wisdom as a secondary. Most of the things that use wisdom as a primary use charisma.
Yeah.
That being said, there are some things which are just straight wisdom.
And talk about it with this class, so I don't have to talk about it with any of the other ones. Up there, you'll also see all the other stuff they get at level 1. Notably, there's a power source. The clerk has a divine power source. This doesn't matter for anything but feats, really. It's just a tag. Armor, they'll have armor proficiencies. We'll talk about armor later. But yeah, same with weapon proficiencies, same idea. Implements are weapons basically for things that
Spells.
use mental stats to attack. Bonuses to defenses. Each class will get a bonus to defenses. Then you have your hit points, which is going to be some flat number plus your constitution score. Your hit points gained per level, which will just be a flat number. Your healing surges, which are a flat number plus your con modifier. As you can see, this is 7 plus your con modifier. So your con modifier doesn't actually matter that much in this equation. And your trained skills, which are, they automatically start with religion, then they get to choose from a list. This is generally how they work for all of them. Then other advice. I didn't put a slide for this, but I might as well mention it. Their advice when it comes to primary, secondary, and tertiary stats is just bad in this book sometimes, because they will advise you to go like, okay, if you're doing this build, you want like strength as your primary and wisdom as your secondary, so you can use all those wisdom attacks. And no, fuck you, I'm just going to use one or the other style of attacks. Especially when we get into like the later classes where that's even less of a thing. Clerk is a little bit more heavily defined between the two attack styles.
One thing I do want to mention is regarding the healing surges, because we didn't really talk about those so much.
Yeah.
A lot of healing in 4th ed is based off of your healing surges. It's not just like outright abilities that are like, when a cleric casts, a cure spell on you, like you can even see here the healing word example. It's not that they heal a certain amount to you. It's that you get to expend a healing surge. So if you don't have a healing surge, you don't get healed.
Yeah. Now, mind you get a lot of them.
Yes, you do get a lot of them, but it is a factor to consider because, like in other editions that have had similar things to that, it's usually a resource that is like, oh, I can expend that, and it does its X amount of healing. But then there's also like Cure Light Wound spells, which will just do their own healing, whatever.
Yeah.
This is like they do recharge pretty regularly, and you get a fair amount of them. But if you run out, you just don't have healing.
Yes. Also, when you do a short rest, you can spend a number of healing surges to get yourself back up.
Yeah.
Which is at most 4, but that's a different matter entirely. Also of note, healing surges, either the amount you have matters or doesn't, depending on how your game is being run. If it's being run how most people who design modules and or the people who design the rules think it's being run, where you have like, I don't know, 8 encounters in a day, then it matters a lot. If it's being run how most human beings normally actually run it, where you have 1 or 2 encounters in a day, it really fucking doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So anyways, class features. First, Channel Divinity, the new Turn Undead, and no longer pertaining that its main use is Turn Undead. Though ironically, the Turn Undead's actually good in this edition. It does like fucking a really good amount of damage. It's just Wisdom versus Will, and scales up with level. It's just a good encounter power. There just has to be undead in the actual fight. And Divine Fortune, which is also bad. But you get other abilities through god-based feats. Basically, every god has a feat which gives you a different channel divinity associated with it, and will inevitably be better than Divine Fortune. So if you don't like Divine Fortune, and you won't, just take the feat associated with your god. They're usually good. To get an encounter power of one sort or another. Like Armor Bahamut here is turns a critical hit into a normal hit, which is not bad as an immediate interrupt. Also beyond that, they add wisdom to the amount they heal, which has, wisdom the amount, adds wisdom to healed amounts. They have a default 2 uses. They have later, I cut out stuff there for some reason. But that's talking about healing word.
Yeah.
But healing word has a default of 2 uses. It later becomes 3. It's the main feature of leaders is basically healing word or something called it. They are both identical in this book. Basically, someone in this case within 5, which eventually becomes 10 or 15, as a minor action, they get to spend a healing surge, and then they regain that amount plus an additional d6, and because they're clerics plus wisdom modifier hit points.
And then that die scales up levels. Every 5 levels, essentially. Every 5 levels after first adds an additional die.
Which is actually pretty meritorious, because this actually lets healers do their job as healers as a minor action, so they can actually do something on their fucking turn other than heal someone.
Yep.
Which can be... Yep. Which, by the way, can also be heal someone.
Healing word exists. Literally, healing word exists.
Yes, but I can't cast a healing spell and healing word because it's leveled spell.
Yeah, you can still do cantrips and stuff, though. You're not doing nothing. You're not just casting a Cure Light Wounds.
Yeah. All right, so powers basics. So this is true of all classes, and again, Clerk is our example class here. So you gain 2 at-will powers at level 1, and that's it for at-will powers. You never get any more at-will powers. Each level has 3 to 4 power choices, sometimes more. I noted them later, but generally you get 3 to 4 power choices. Weapon powers will do a number will do X times the damage die of the weapon, or the damage of the weapon is multiple, or you get to roll the damage dice multiple times. So you see, like for Priest Shield here, it's 1 weapon plus strength modifier. So you basically roll the damage dice for the weapon once. So if it's a D8, you roll a D8. For Inspiring Strike here, it's 2W, so you roll 2D8, etc. You basically roll, it multiplies the amount of times you damage.
At wills usually tend to be more towards like 1 weapon, because again, there's something you could just use over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They do also scale typically, like you can see Priest Shield again at 21st level goes to 2 weapon plus strength, but also that's at like 21st level. So
yeah, that's pretty much all the scaling they have is at 21st level. They scale up to that. But yeah, they often target AC, but because they're using weapons, they'll add 2 to 3 extra to the roll because you're proficient. While implements they'll just say what dice and damage they do. So if you see, if you look at Sacred Flame over there, it does a D6 plus Wisdom modifier damage and other effects. We'll ignore for now. And they will usually target the other defenses. Technically, AC is also defense, but in this case, I'm referring to for reflex and will. And sometimes abilities have equivalents at replacement levels, but sometimes they don't. Like Healing Inspired Strike is clearly an upscaled Healing Strike. It's a better effect, effectively. Yeah, heal hit points equal to 15 plus your charisma modifier, as opposed to mark something, and which we'll talk
They
about
can use
later,
Healing Surge.
and they can use a healing surge. They're a bit different because healing surges are a bit different. Actually, healing surges will scale better than flat numbers, but that's a different matter entirely. But yeah, and also a couple examples of just daily powers, which you get one use of. So daily powers almost always will have half damage on miss, or occasionally, like since clerk will tend to have riders on stuff for its effects because they're a leader, either buffs or debuffs depending on what's happening.
Alternatively, a lot of times daily power, like if they don't have half damage on miss, they'll almost always be reliable, so you don't expend it if you miss.
Yeah, that's in this book. That was basically a fighter thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, and that's about all for that. So clerk powers proper. Yeah, there's two different lines depending on which stat you consider as primary. Strength, which is weapon based in close quarters, and wisdom, which is implement based and has a dash of AOE's here and there. Both do buffing, debuffing, and healing, with mostly a focus on single targets. Because of the nature of how they built Clerk, it is probably actually one of the most restrictive ones when it comes to how you build. You're basically getting two choices every level instead of four if you built wisdom or you build strength. And if you try to build both, you're causing yourself a headache.
Well, and again, realistically, because wisdom sort of works as a secondary stat for the strength based stuff,
Yeah.
you can get away with picking a wisdom based power here or there. But yeah, you're still primarily going to go down the strength based powers.
Basically, if you're doing wisdom as your primary, you're never going to do strength as a secondary. You're always going to do charisma.
Yeah, if you're doing
If you're
strength
doing
as a
strength
primary,
primary, wisdom is your secondary, so you can dip and do some of the wisdom line.
Yeah. If they're both staying around the same numbers anyways, hypothetically, you can just use them both, but you also have to have an extra magic item or you have to have an extra magic.
because you have to implement. The biggest thing is that cleric doesn't have a whole lot of ranged options if you're going down the strength build, which is why you would pick up like a wisdom based power just to give you some amount of ranged ability.
Yeah, you might want
Because like some of these, like you can still get Mantle of Glory even if you're doing the strength side of it, because you're still going to have a decent wisdom score, and that doesn't care about charisma at all.
And it also gives you like an
And
AOE
it gives you,
attack.
like, an AOE attack.
Or like spiritual
you're
weapon
less
is also like
likely
a
to
really
take,
good
like, cause
daily.
fear because you're not getting any extra benefit from the charisma part of it,
Yeah.
making things way further from you.
Yeah, you're still primarily going to take the strength line if you're going
yeah.
strength. But like I said, to get some ranged ability, it can be
You
worth
can
it to
dip
dip
into
into one or two of the ones that are purely wisdom focused.
Carry around and implement when you need.
All right.
Really no different than like a warrior carrying around a bow if he needs to do a range attack.
Yeah.
Paragon paths. This is the only place where we'll actually talk about them. So each class gets its own set of Paragon paths. You choose one at level 11. It comes with a set of abilities that gives you pretty specific powers at 11, 12, and 20. Sometimes they're based on third edition classes. Sometimes they're not. Like here's the four basically for Cleric, where you have Angelic Avenger, which I don't remember being being a prestige class, but War Priest absolutely fucking was. And yeah, they'll also give you some passive abilities.
It is worth noting that, I mean, we'll talk about it a bit more as we get into later books, but the PHP is very nice with the Paragon paths in that they do have prereqs which sort of guide you into the like, hey, you were a cleric, you're going to go into one of these four. Later time Paragon paths
Are
just like they have prereqs that could be met by a whole lot of different things, or sometimes, here's just a Paragon path you can take for whatever.
Yeah.
And they do not in any way, shape, or form save you from making a dog shit build.
All right, fighter. Our first defender / tank. Its primary is strength, period. Its secondary is dexterity, wisdom, or constitution, and they actually have the most diversity of builds of anything in here because their diversity of builds is very much based on their weapon choices, which we'll get into in a minute. But fighter class features here, yep, that's all of them. You have combat challenge, so whenever you hit or miss something, you mark something. Marking is the primary tool of tanks in 4th edition. A mark gives the target a -2 on attacks against anyone else, which is not really all that great of a debuff, but every single defender comes with a rider on marks, because as you saw, there was a previous cleric power that can mark things.
Yep.
So in their case, when they mark something, they also, whenever they citation to shifts, which is moving away without provoking attacks of opportunity, or makes it a 5-foot step equivalent, or makes an attack that doesn't include you as a target, you get to make a melee basic attack against them as an immediate interrupt. And note, because your strength is your primary stat, your melee basic attack is just going to be a good attack. But yeah, beyond
It is important to note by the way, that this is just whenever a marked enemy that is adjacent to you.
Doesn't it be your mark?
Doesn't have to be your mark.
Yeah.
So that is the important thing about like other classes having things that mark, even though they don't get typically the additional builds that defenders do, is that other classes can mark targets, and your secondary stuff usually will trigger on a target that's marked by anybody, not just marked by you. It is an interesting feature in that too. That like, yeah, it's not great. The penalty isn't really that big a deal, but it's at least a feature that attempts to make tanking work in TTRPG. A thing which, again, as you move either forward or backward in editions, doesn't really exist. There's no real way. There are very limited ways in any given edition to be like, no, you are going to fight me.
Yeah.
And so this was at least a decent attempt at it.
Other notable things of that is Fighter does not actually have any limits on the amount of things they can mark. This is absolutely this is an exception actually. So mind you, you have to figure out how to make more attacks than in a round in order to mark multiple things, and there are some powers that will let you do it, but they're not the most common thing in the world. Also, combat superiority there, so they gain bonus opportunity attacks equal to their wisdom modifier. In this edition, you gain 1 opportunity attack per turn. And hitting anything keeps it from moving, so if they're trying to shift away and you hit them, they stop. Or if they're trying to move away outright and provoke normally, they just stop. So it does make them a lot better at locking things down. Again, they actually are kind of built towards tanking. And finally, fighter weapon talent. Are you using 1 or 2-handed weapon? Congratulations, you get a +1 to hit.
Okay.
Yep.
Matters a lot early, matters fuck all later.
But yeah. All right, and fighter powers. So their build is divided more by the weapon being used than anything else, and there are plenty of powers that don't care what you're using, making a lot of powers more universal, and they will get more power choices at levels that specialize in weapon-oriented powers. Usually, they get like 6 if it happens to be a level where okay, this level we decide that you're getting a weapon-oriented power of one sort or another, so there's like 6 choices here. Furthermore, each of those will usually have 2 or 3 weapon groups in
They
them.
work with.
Yeah. They're both the actual class in this book that gets reliable attacks and stances. Reliable attacks will usually not do reliable attacks don't do half damage on miss, but they aren't used up if you miss. Yeah.
It's also worth noting again, like, I mean, you can see from the example at will powers there as well. Sometimes it is weapon group, sometimes it is just classifications like Reaping Strike's miss effect has extra if it's a 2-handed weapon, which doesn't care what weapon group it's from as long as it is 2-handed, essentially. So both of those things kind of apply.
Which is also cute to have a miss at will
At will power,
So
yeah.
I swung, I didn't hit, you still take strength damage.
Yeah. Notably for minions, that still won't do anything because they do.
You actually
have to hit.
Yeah, minions don't care about taking damage; they care about being
hit. Yep.
Yeah. But if you're talking something that isn't a minion, and quite a few enemies also aren't minions, will have actual hit points, it's still at least
it's still chipping at damage every single round.
Yeah,
it's not doing nothing when you base that.
Yeah. And utility powers I forgot to talk about for cleric, but cleric utility powers are usually oriented towards healing or gaining rebuffs. Fighter utility powers are very much combat focused, and tank oriented stuff is fairly common. Like defensive training there is a stance that you enter is just +2 to all of your reflex and will defenses. Unbreakable there, which just reduces the damage you take from an attack outright, stuff like that. But yeah. And the reason why they have so many secondary stats is they're tied to the weapon.
Yeah.
So whatever.
You can see it within the weapon groups.
Yeah.
Weapons are either dex, con, or pole arms. For some reason, are wisdom based.
Yes.
And rarely dex.
Yes. Yeah. It generally comes down to use whatever weapon you want. It's go nuts. The idea was to try and distinguish between weapon groups. The problem is because they had to kind of add a bunch of them together, it doesn't actually matter anywhere near as much as you think it does. You'll get good options no matter what. And again, you get a lot of options at those levels. And when it comes to not all of your encounter powers will care about what weapon you're using.
Yeah.
And none of your daily powers do.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any power in the entirety of 4th Ed, even with all the books that came out for fighters, that is for a singular weapon group. I think they almost always have at least 2.
Like even though they're like one's light blade and spear, the other one's axe, flail, heavy blade, or pick.
Yeah, they're almost always at least 2, and most of the time they're 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's usually going to be a grouping of things that use the same secondary stat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they did want to make individual ones, they'd have to make
A lot, actually.
like 10
Yeah.
abilities every single time they want to give you, or just accept that you're never going to use this weapon because it gets half as many options as any other weapon does.
Yeah. All right. Paladin, the other defender / tank in the book. No longer lawful good law class. You could be a paladin of any alignment.
Yeah, again, alignment has no mechanical effect.
Alignment has no mechanical effect, and it's more like you're just a champion of a god, basically. So their primary is either strength or charisma. You're hitting things with a weapon regardless. Their secondary is wisdom and sort of strength or charisma, which I will get into in a second. But yeah, paladin class features. So everything's a minor action. Move action can be traded for a second minor action. So each use of channel divinity uses one of 2 prime stats, sort of making an argument that the other is a secondary or tertiary stat. Basically, if you don't take strength or you don't take, or if you tank your strength or you tank your charisma, you effectively don't have that channel divinity. Lay on hands is actually a wisdom times per day power. As well, and this is one of the few instances where you see a minor amount of bleed of one thing into another, where there's actually like a leader style healing ability in this class, sort of, but you don't really see too much bleed over rolls as much. And divine challenge is the only thing that lets them mark, and they can only mark 1 target at a time, and they have to use their minor action to do it. But it is a fairly effective mark still, because the secondary on this is when they do a naughty thing, they just straight up take radiant damage equal to scaling. It starts at 3 plus charisma and eventually goes to 9 plus charisma. Now, mind you, you actually have to be next. You have to get next to them on your turn, or the mark fades.
You either have to attack it or get next.
Or
attack
attack
you
or
don't have
get
to be
next to it.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you have a ranged attack of some sort, that can kind of work.
Yeah, or you can attack and walk away, etc.
yeah.
But
Their powers are primarily oriented towards melee attacks, but yeah. And we get into paladin powers.
that is the other thing about their mark. Their mark, because it stays around as long as you attack or end your move next to them, or end your turn next to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't fade at the end of a round, so they can just keep using that power every single round to mark more enemies, as long as they can continue to either attack the marked ones they have or end them next to them.
No. Wait a second. Creature can be only so.
Yeah,
No,
remains
a new mark supersedes.
yeah, a new mark does supersede an old mark.
A new mark.
That's like a
mark
sub-
of
Each creature can only have 1 mark at a time, and it remains marked until you use this power against another target, or if you fail to engage the
Okay.
target.
Okay, yeah, that's
Never
the
mind.
part. They fail. Yeah, they can only have 1 target mark at a
Yeah.
time.
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah. But yeah, paladin powers. Strength only ever uses weapons. Charisma uses both weapons and implements, which gives them at least some range and AOE capability there. But primarily, they're still using weapons if they're charisma. Both primary stat abilities use wisdom as a secondary stat, and it appears far more on abilities than the secondary stats of other classes. You're going to be using wisdom pretty much period in this class. Also has the occasional out of combat utility power, like astral speech there, which is a power bonus on diplomacy checks for an encounter, stuff like that. Their smites are notably like encounter powers, basically, and various flavors of smite instead of what it was beforehand. So it is. We use the word smite, and it's just your encounter powers. Yeah.
Realistically, what was smite before has essentially become one of their the strength channel divinity.
Well,
Yeah.
what was Smite before? Probably just like Radiant Smite, where it's here's your big attack that adds an extra stat to it.
Yeah, but their strength channel divinity is also just like a flat out like, hey, you hit them and it does
It does
damage.
extra damage.
All right. Ranger, our first striker / DPS, and continues to have an identity crisis with its martial power source. Technically, this book does not have primal power sources. If you noticed, there wasn't a druid. That's actually in player. That's primarily Player's Handbook 2 that has primal as a power source. But that they wanted our class in here, so Ranger is a martial power source. Again, it's a keyword. It's only for flavor, really, and prerequisites for feats. So primarily, they're either using strength if they're dual wielding, or dexterity if they're a range build. Their secondary is always wisdom. So, Ranger class features, while you technically choose a fighting style, there's nothing that actually stops an archer from taking the two-bladed fighting style, which is probably the better choice of the two, as no Ranger powers or feats in this book key off of this source or use these feats as prerequisites for anything. So, you could either get your +2 bonus to AC versus opportunity attacks, or you can just gain toughness, which is extra
20 hit points.
well, 5 hit points
five
any
hit
share
points,
play, so
15
eventually
total.
15 total.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rather have the extra hit points.
For a lot of classes, for that's almost an entire extra level's worth of hit points.
Yeah.
And yeah, +2.
Multiple levels worth of hit points.
Yeah. As far as
Well, I mean, even
yeah,
at,
5
even,
is literally an extra
yeah,
level.
it's literally an extra level's worth of hit points at each tier.
Yeah.
But that being said, also +2 to AC against opportunity attacks is fucking nothing.
Yes. We also see the first DPS ability with Hunter's Quarry here. So that's a minor action that refuses to be in a power box. We'll find a lot of that in this book, and they later get put into power boxes in later books. But all strikers have something like this, which adds dice to one attack a turn. Usually, with the exception of Rogue, they're all almost identical. Of it's a D6 per tier.
It's also an incredibly simple ability. It's basically a minor
Yeah.
action to say, "Fuck that guy, do an extra D6 to them to die."
So
Yeah.
you
The closest guy, I believe.
you may have picked up on as we're going
Enemy dearest to you.
as we're going through this, you may have noticed that Vince is very often, when we're talking about a given role, saying all XYZ of this role have something that does this. That is because every fucking class in 4th Ed is the same fucking class.
As we get into further books, you will see that it seems very odd that we're talking about basically the same thing every time we talk about another class.
Yeah, go figure.
That is, strangely enough, just how 4th Ed works and one of the big issues we have with it.
Yep. So Ranger powers. A decent amount of powers are built to be used with either fighting style. This is actually one of the better builds when it comes to their powers. It's despite the fact they have 2 different primary stats. Hey, we just listed. Hey, you can use strength or you can use dex.
Yeah.
See how easy that fucking is?
Yeah, you'll also see quite a number of the powers on the shown here when it shows what they need to be used. It's either melee or ranged weapon. Some of them are specific, but quite a lot of them are melee or ranged weapon because they're just like, hey, this power should be usable no matter what build you went with.
Even like their at-will powers, you have hit and run, which is melee, triple strike, which is ranged, or twin strike, which is melee or ranged. It uses strength if it's melee, it uses dex if it's ranged.
Yep.
This annoys me
You just
so
make
much
2
more
attacks.
after having to go through both Clerk and Paladin and going, okay, you got like half the options because you're choosing one primary stat or the other, and why the fuck didn't you just do this?
Twin strike is also a mildly interesting one. It shows you that hitting with weapons doesn't inherently add stat to damage.
Correct.
Because twin strike doesn't add stat to damage. It just make 2 attacks, but they just do weapon damage.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like nimble strike or hit and run that do weapon damage plus stat.
Okay. Also, to skip ahead mildly to explain exactly how dual wielding works in this edition, you hold a weapon in one hand and you hold a weapon in the other hand.
And if a power says you get to use both of them, you get to use both of them. If a power that doesn't say you get to use both of them, get fucked.
Yes.
Yep.
That makes perfect.
Yep. So again, their powers mainly do damage, often multiple attacks, and a decent amount of movement baked into the powers. They're a little bit better at, regardless of whether they do ranged or melee, they're actually a little bit better at doing damage to multiple targets in a turn, simply by the nature of how they're built. Like Twin Strike, it doesn't care whether you're doing melee or range, you can attack 2 creatures.
Just to do that.
Yeah.
A number of their melee ones do require you to be wielding 2 weapons, but not all of them. Like for instance,
I mean, the base at will melee one
like
is
nimble
just
strike
whatever.
doesn't require you to use, but twin strike willingly does.
Yeah, and often extra. But yeah, often the writers on their attacks are like stuff like power bonus equal on attack roll equal to wisdom modifier or stuff like that. It's they don't cause status conditions as much as the other classes that we've gone over does, and that's pretty normal for strikers.
Strikers.
Yeah.
Your strikers tend to
Yeah, strikers don't have a lot of extra effects, or if they do,
pure
it's
single target DPS
Yeah.
for those.
Yeah.
a lot of the extra effects on most striker classes tend to just be either positioning stuff to let them better get damage in, or just extra damage.
Yeah. All right. Rogue, also striker, which is not actually their traditional role, which is skill monkey / disposable nuts.
Yeah, but they don't really have
But
a
they-
role that is a skill role, kind
they
of.
did
They
something
don't.
I'm mostly fine with in fourth ed, which is where they divorce things like what you do outside of combat
Yeah.
with the
Yeah,
here's all
they
the
do.
combat stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yes.
as we talked about at the very start. We were talking about is fourth ed a role playing game or a tabletop
It's a
war
tabletop
game
war game.
that has RPG stuff in it, and it is that it doesn't have a lot of rules for non-combat stuff.
Yeah.
And so they made Rogue a striker because they were just kind of like,
Because that's what they are in combat.
yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, I think Rogue does still end up with more skills than most other classes because they get the 2 base and 4 choices, which I think most classes get like 2 and 2 or 2 and 3.
Okay, this is the bad example, but
Yeah, if they choose 4. They get.
I think they also have a wider range of choices as well. Yeah, because like Paladin here gets
3.
gets 3. Period. It doesn't even get it gets religion and 3.
Rogue gets-
Ranger also tended to have a lot of skills, but
Yeah,
they're
Ranger
also
is
more
traditionally a
focused.
skill monkey. That's why I said that's a bad example.
Yeah, so they do get a wider range of trained skills, which matters a very slight amount because again, half level to everything. But
Yeah, they get
Yeah.
2 and then pick.
But yeah, their primary stat is entirely Dex, and their secondary stat is either Strength if they're a brutal scoundrel or Charisma if they're an artful dodger, which also gets into their class features. So unlike Ranger, your choice of Rogue tactic actually affects your powers, which has the added bonus of signposting which powers are for you. Yeah, so if you choose Artful Dodger, there are powers that just straight up have Artful Dodger tagged on them. If you choose
Yeah.
Brutal Scoundrel, there are powers that just straight up have Brutal Scoundrel tagged to them.
like you can take the powers without that being your thing, but you are missing out on significant like bonuses to them.
Yeah.
They are not designed for you.
They're still an option. They're just
So Sneak does more damage than the other striker abilities and requires no action to turn on, which is both great, but it does require combat advantage, which means either you're flanking, or you either get through flanking or get through the first strike ability, which will last for all of the first round of combat if you roll higher than everyone. And various conditions on a target will also actually cause you to have combat advantage. A lot of the negative conditions in the game actually do grant
Combat advantage, yeah.
And
And Rogue Weapon Talent is just fucking funny.
yes, it basically means your shurikens and daggers are effectively martial
Sure
weapons.
can do more damage. Daggers have +1 hit.
Yeah. Strangely enough, making daggers probably your best weapon. We'll go now we can get to the weapons though. So rogue powers. Attacking powers require rogue weapons of one sort or another. They're like light blade or crossbow and light blade or whatever, regardless of what you're using. So Brutal Scoundrel and Artful Dodger don't appear on that many powers, but there are also non-tactics powers that use the secondary stats anyways. So you will find stuff that uses like Charisma or Strength modifier that don't have the specific tag. Charisma powers tend to deal with mobility and defense, while Strength powers tend to just deal more damage. There's also the occasional debuff here and there, usually things that give combat advantage, which makes sense because of what the class is. So they have a variety of mobility and out of combat oriented utility powers with more choices per level than usual, but all of them require you to have training in one skill or another. So, like Great Labor right there requires you have training in athletics. Master of Deceit there requires you to have training in bluffs, stuff like that. They'll have like 6 at each level, so you have a decent chunk of utility powers to choose from.
Yeah, so that's kind of how they still maintain the sort of skill monkey aspect of Rogue is like, hey, you want to have, like, we give you the ability to be trained in basically 6 skills, and you want to really put thought into what skills you are training in because they are going to determine what choices you can make for a lot of your utility powers.
Yeah. Their utility powers also do seem more oriented towards at will and encounter utility powers. There's not actually as many dailies, so you see them more often as well. Let's see.
And yeah, you can see there the encounter powers in the upper corner there. One of them is an Artful Dodger, one of them is a Brutal Scoundrel. Like the Brutal Scoundrel one gets to add its Strength modifier as well as the base Dex modifier. You can still take that power if you went Artful Dodger, and it will still do 2 weapon plus Dex. You just don't get the additional strength damage.
Similarly, Positioning Strike.
You can
lets
still
you
take if you're brutal, but you just don't get to slide them.
The target if you're Artful Dodger. You don't get that if you're Scoundrel.
Like, I don't know why you would if you weren't focused in that, but it is technically an option.
Yes. All right, so Warlock, the new flavor that carries over into fifth, and technically was also in Complete Mage. But they're an arcane caster who learns how to finger waggle by making deals with various denizens of the planes. Is a deeps in this edition. So their primary is charisma if they made a pact with Fey or Stars, or Constitution if they made a pact with Infernal and Stars. Yes, it's split. And secondary is intelligence.
Yeah, flavor wise, one of the things that I think interesting about Warlock from 4th edition forward is they sort of inherited almost kind of half the flavor of Binder as well as the actual Warlock flavor.
Yeah. And Warlock class abilities. So their 2 at-will abilities are, one is automatically Eldritch Blast, and a power determined by what pack they made a pack with, which also gives them something that happens when their cursed target hits 0 hit points. Warlock's curse is their own version of Hunter's Quarry, except they can do it on multiple things at a time.
Yep.
It otherwise works exactly the same. One thing I did not mention here, because I had to go look up rules and I also didn't have text to fit on the screen. If you're a human, you just get to choose a 3rd encounter power. It doesn't actually matter what the sub tag is. You don't actually have to be that pact to have that power.
Correct. It's just you get granted one by your pact, but they are still all at-will powers if you are human or one of the very few scant other things that let you choose at-will
you
powers.
could be like a half elf and then just choose to get this power inside your class.
Yeah. You can just choose any of them because they are still just basic at-will powers.
Yeah. And Warlock powers here. So intelligence is the secondary stat of all packs, and all encounter powers have extra bonuses if you have the right pack. You can take powers of different packs than yours again, but they just do less sometimes. Powers are mostly single target oriented with various effects depending on packs. Their effects vary a lot more than everyone else precisely because whatever pack you has kind of determines what it really focuses on for their secondary effects. Utility powers similarly are various in effects as well.
It is worth noting that Constitution-based Warlocks in 4th Ed are really fucking funny. Just because of the way it builds out, they tend to have really strong fortitude and reflex defenses, and also just a shit ton of HP because they've got a high con score to start with, meaning they start off with a ton more than basically what you would expect from any of the strikers because they generally don't have high con. And over time just become ridiculous, especially in later books when you get other options like replacing Eldritch Blast with Eldritch Spear, making it a melee attack.
Yeah.
Is this the first place that sustains have shown up?
I believe so, actually. I believe these are the
yeah,
first powers we've seen that see sustain, which
I didn't describe them specifically.
it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
As a insert action here, usually minor, you can continue to use that power and it does whatever it says it does.
Yeah. Notably, if you don't sustain it, the power goes away.
Yeah. Again, a thing that is mostly for daily powers because it gives them a bit of extra staying power and makes them a bit more worth it.
Yeah. All right, Warlord. New class in the other healer in this book. I have no idea how there's no core prestige class in 3rd edition named Warlord. Of all the fucking classes they made, it was just weird.
Because in 3rd edition, it was, what was it, Marshall?
Marshall. This is vaguely, I think, if you squint hard enough, you could consider it Marshall. But
you can see the through line from Marshall to this, but it is definitely a much more developed class.
Yes. So their primary is strength, and their secondary is either intelligence if they went tactical presence or charisma if they went inspiring presence. So yeah, like Rogue, your choice of commanding presence enhances certain powers. So yeah, they literally have tags as well on theirs. Also, it has its own healing minor action power, like Clerk, exactly like Clerk. This is literally word for word the same thing as healing word.
Spying word, it's totally different.
Yeah.
You can kind of get an idea of what Warlord's deal is if you look at what the commanding presences do, in the sense that they're not a thing that the Warlord themselves does, but it is with an ally within who can see them, spends an action point on their turn to make an extra action. They have an effect. So like Warlord is, for all intents and purposes, effectively kind of an aura class.
Yeah. Also, this kind of gets into something I don't think we talked about anywhere else. So yeah, this is a healer that doesn't do magical healing, mend your wounds back together so much as they're just boosting morale.
Get back in there, you
Yeah,
bitch. You're not done yet.
Rub
Yeah.
some dirt on it and get back in that fight.
Yeah, because HP as a concept isn't necessarily how much damage you have literally
It is not
physically
beat
taken.
points.
Yeah, it is not. Yeah,
It's how much more punishment you can take before you're out, essentially.
Yeah.
Whether that means actual physical punishment or just you're getting beat too
worn
bad and you're
down,
just like
yeah.
whatever, or some dude punches your jaw halfway around the back of your head. But yeah, that is notable. Again, power source doesn't really have much of a mechanical effect, but this is a martial healer.
yes. Although, as an aside, it would be hilarious if they did martial healing the other way of literally I'm hitting him with weapons and it's healing him. But
I stab your wound closed.
It's not a healing rod. That's how that works.
Please stop beating me if you're healing wrong. But it's making you better.
It's encouraging you to go back out there and continue fighting. Then it's doing its job.
For reference, please see the wrong way to do healing magic.
Yes.
So, anyways, Warlord powers. Occasionally grants allies basic attacks. This is where the basic range attacks actually comes into play, because they are strength based if you're melee or dex based if you're range. And Eldritch Blast and Warlock and later books more base attack powers actually appear, but Eldritch Blast and Warlock in this one is also a base attack power, so that it actually works with them really well. It works with, I think it actually works with all the strikers really well, not as much other characters. But yeah.
Yeah, their powers tend to give out ally buffs and actions, as seen in the very first at-will power listed for Warlord, which is, genuinely speaking, just flavor-wise, my favorite at-will power in the entirety of 4th edition. You hit him.
Yeah.
You hit him where you get to do the base attack damage.
And they
then
add your
I
int
add my
modifier.
int.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is just extremely funny to me that, their at-will power is not actually an
Punch
attack
in
of
the
their own.
jaw.
It's like, you! Fuck him up!
This is where party composition can make things really weird, because if you have a range attack ranger or a bow ranger, a charisma clerk, and a charisma paladin, that just sucks as power because
Yes.
no one is using their strength as a basic attack a basic attack.
Yes.
Then you just don't take that one.
But yeah, it's back to the whole. You kind of need to build parties all at the same time and know what everyone is doing, because you don't want to take that power if no one is going to be able to do a melee basic attack and have it do anything good.
Which, I mean, granted, again, from the concept of being able to just do a pickup game or a gather group game at your friendly local game store, I see that as a disadvantage. I personally think that is actually a strength of the edition, in that I like the idea of a session zero. I like the idea of people designing their characters not in a vacuum of I'm only going to think about what my character is and what does, because I think it just becomes a stronger campaign where you can have that time to build and work out this works together. That also leads to, from the mechanical aspect of also into the lore aspect of maybe our characters know each other and have worked together before, and that's why they kind of mesh up like that.
I'm 50-50 on it, because for stuff like this, that's fine. Because this is one choice of one power that if this doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I just choose a different power. Who cares? I could probably even ask the DM to choose a different power.
Yeah.
When it comes to having the more rigidly defined roles,
Yes.
that's where I kind of go, okay, I don't really want to force a player to run a leader because we need a leader in here, especially if the better solution would be, how about we just have a system where healing is more easily slotted into characters regardless of what class they are?
Well, and we can talk about it. We'll talk about it more, I'm sure, as we get to later books too. But they did also kind of fix that to a certain extent later on in 4th, in that later classes tended to have a primary and secondary role, very similar to kind of how Paladin had a little bit of leader to them here.
Yeah.
It became a more common thing for core classes to have later in later books. And also they started adding more options later on for classes to have sort of the secondary roles that didn't necessarily have them at initial.
Yeah. And they also had the hybrid system.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Wizard. The only controller, which by the way is AoE damage and crowd control, basically built into the class in this book. So their primary is intelligence. They don't have a secondary. I will strongly argue they just don't have a secondary. They have a tertiary of wisdom, dexterity, or constitution, which we'll get into pretty much with their class features. So Arcane Implement Mastery is the only thing in this class that cares about stats other than intelligence, and they're all once per encounter abilities. You're going to take one of them, and you're going to have that stat, but it is nowhere near as important as it is for other classes. None of your powers give a fuck. It will come up once an encounter. Sometimes not even then, depending on what you chose. Also, the best one, you could argue Wand might be the best one. The problem with Wand is their primary is intelligence. If your secondary is Dex,
Your
these are
only
overlapping
reflex,
stats.
You're only You're only getting decent bonuses to your reflex defense. You're getting an okay AC, but your fort defense and will defense are both going to be fucking awful.
Yeah. And the other powers have their own merits anyways, so. Also, cantrips for, you have a bunch of cantrips for flavor. I literally list all of them. They just know all of them. They also have the whole memorizing from spellbook shtick, which effectively means every time you choose utility and daily power, you just choose 2 of them, and every day you memorize 1 of them at the start of the day.
Yeah, so again, wizards are the only class that has anything even remotely unique about how their build out goes. But even then, in practice, it still ends up, they play the same. They just have a little bit more variability.
They have a little more leeway in what they can do each day, but even then, realistically, you're going to pick 2 powers and you're going to memorize 1 of them.
Yeah, you're going to memorize 1 unless you have a specific reason to be like, oh, this one's going to be better
I
today.
know very specifically that this is going to come up, so I can memorize this other one I took, but otherwise, I'm pretty much always memorizing this.
Also, if they had more shit like cantrips and all the other classes, I'd probably be less harsh on this edition.
Yeah.
Because this is, hey, here's this flavor-wise, not so much combat thing, but is kind of interesting and neat and quirky. What do the other classes get to do this?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Fuck you. You're not a wizard.
Like, there are no ribbons. That's because this in any of the edition, there's nothing that like adds a bit of color to the class. It's just
Even in a game system where they basically got rid of the caster martial divide by making everything the same, they still had to give wizards something.
Wizards
extra.
are still special. Yeah.
All right, so wizard powers specialize in AoE and area denial with debuffing as well thrown in the mix. They have a good AoE at will powers straight up. No one else. You get like at most 2 attacks from other at will powers. That was like Ranger. Here they get like here's a 3x3 that you can put 10 squares away that does a d6 plus intelligence damage to everything in the burst. It's like they just straight up have repeatable AoE attacks or decent AoE attacks, and a lot of wizard powers are just fourth ed interpretations of classical spells. Straight up, I literally listed them here: Ray of Enfeeblement, Sleep, Featherfall,
Color
Shield,
Spell.
Color
Yeah.
Spray, Fireball, Web. It's
Yeah, I mean, it is actually, you didn't point it out, it is somewhat similar with Cleric. A lot of like Cleric spells, like Cure Light Wounds is like a daily power for Clerics. Healing Word again is Healing Word, stuff like that.
But it's not
not
near as
it's not
much.
nearly as 1-to-1. Wizard, I don't think has any new powers for Wizard.
They do, or they probably do here and there. I can't causally guarantee that there are a shit ton of spells. So-
Magic missile counts as basic.
Yeah.
Yes, Magic Missile does count
counts
as a basic attack.
Yeah. But you have to roll to hit, and that's just fucking wrong.
It is.
I mean, in fairness, it's against reflex defense rather than AC.
It also has a 20 range.
Yeah, 100 foot.
Yeah. Most of their things are versus... everything they do is versus a defense. They don't do AC.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, Epic Destinies. Where I just broke down at this point. The lack of art in plain white background has just got to me. This
Yeah,
section
so-
has no art in the world as a center.
So it is important to note, obviously Vince has been like cutting out the power cards and all that kind of stuff to show them off ideally, but they don't look substantially different than when you see them on the page. There is so little art in just this entire edition.
Also, look at the page count down there. This is page 174. I've gone through over 100 pages at this point.
Well,
But
yeah, because the thing that you didn't show, because you're only cutting out individual powers, is that most of the classes are just here's several pages in a row
Yeah.
of just those power blocks.
Yeah, because it's
Yes.
literally like artwork
here's
wise.
level 1 ones, here's level 2 shit, here's level 4 shit.
Yeah,
here's
like
level...
like artwork wise, you generally get the artwork at the class introduction where it's like, hey, here's what like a ranger looks like, and then you get like
pages
10
of
pages.
boxes.
You get just 10 pages of those power cards.
And when you
You'll get to the Paragon Paths that will have like one artwork.
yeah,
And then it's just...
when you consider that like each level tier is going to have like 4-ish powers typically, like 2 of each,
4 or
stat
6 depending
base,
upon which
basically.
you are. Yeah.
It's like that means that every time you hit a new like level that gives you something, here's 4 more boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
again and again. And
Yeah,
again. That's all it is.
I'm not exaggerating. It's like 8 to 10 pages of just that for every class, and then one piece of artwork for the next class, and then another 8 to 10 pages of nothing.
Just boxes.
Yeah. So in case you pick an epic at 21, and it's from anything that you qualify for, you will always qualify for Demigod because it has a prerequisite of 21.
Being 21st level.
Yeah.
So here's this kind of gets into what I was talking about. Epic Destinies are a little bit more loose with the prereqs. You can see there from like Deadly Trickster. Deadly Trickster doesn't say you have to be a rogue. It is just you have to be 21, Dex or Charisma 21, and training in one of 4 skills.
Clearly intended to be rogue.
It's clearly intended to be rogue, and not that it's necessarily bad if you're not a rogue, but it's like there are just obvious benefits that tie more directly to being a rogue. But you could go into this if you were like, for some reason, a fighter that had a 21 charisma or 21 dex, and the skill. I think that fighters get acrobatics as a choice, but regardless, the point is like you could still get there and choose this, and it's not going to work well for your build.
That one will.
That one will specifically. There are ones that are absolutely like that. Like Archmage, I'm pretty sure you could qualify for it without actually having to be anything caster-wise.
Correct.
Works for arcane power, nothing else.
Yeah. You may well have to actually be
like our Deadly Trick release just gives you a bunch of rerolls.
I think Archmage. I think Archmage does actually require you to have arcane power.
Yeah, but they aren't always as strictly built. I would have to actually look over them individually, and they are even more important than the other parts of it. Anyways,
yes.
At least they are something that isn't just encounter daily and at will powers, but yeah, except for that daily power. All right, skills, which we'll go over briefly because there's not much to go over here. So skills there's roughly 1/87th the number of skills that 3rd edition had.
Yeah,
So
they did
like
compress.
third.
They did condense and simplify them a lot.
It depends on how you count, because there is craft. How many craft skills are there? Profession. How many profession skills are there?
Those are sub skills.
Those are effectively infinite as long as you can make up something that's a professional.
There was an actual defined list, but
yeah, but it didn't stop with the defined.
No,
list.
they don't.
Yes, there is a defined list that said here are the ones we have, but also within that description, it literally said or anything else you could think of that it would apply.
It's like the same with perform.
Yeah,
open ended.
So all skill checks are a d20 plus stat plus half level, and if you're trained, that gives you a +5. That's what training does. Skill DCs are scaled in a similar way, mostly making the half level pointless, except for movement skills like acrobatics, which are actually have fixed DCs, because it's actually kind of hard for them to rig a higher DC when you're still just moving over the same fucking terrain.
So you claim DC increased by 10.
There are parts of the monster manual, or not the monster, the DM's guide that just drive me insane with, here's the increasing DCs of locks, or we could just not do that. They could just fucking open a lock after a while. You don't have to.
No. Everywhere they go, locks are harder.
Fucking...
Everyone's replaced their master locks.
I mean, I can understand, like, there's slightly higher tiers of locks, I guess, but, like, fucking, no, we don't need to scale with level. Fuck off.
Yeah, there should be higher quality locks that are harder to get into, but that shouldn't be a scaling thing based on what level you are. It should just be sometimes you come across a really tough lock. Sometimes, even when you're high level, you're going to run across a master lock. You're going to pick up a rock and hit it. It's going to open. It's just challenging anymore.
Yeah, so again, this comes back to the whole you never feel like you're really making that much progress.
They're always increase the DCs a lot. It's literally the same problem that True Namer has.
Yeah.
Where the scaling for True Namer is double challenge rating.
So
not only do you not feel like you're making progress, you feel like you're making negative progress as you level.
Okay, so if scaling for True Namer was just single challenge rating, you would absolutely be making progress because that game throws way too many bonuses at you.
Since it's double.
But since it's double,
you don't feel like you're getting stronger. In fact, for True Namer, you feel like you're getting weaker.
Yes, because double's probably too much.
But when the DC scales constantly with you the entire time, as I said, you don't feel like you're any stronger because you still need a 10 to pass, and you need a 10 to pass 5 levels ago, and you need a 10 to pass 10 levels ago.
Yeah. All right, feats. Okay, let me go back for a second as well. I actually do love the fucking condensed list of skills. This is actually the best thing they did.
Yes. I do feel like they went almost a little too far, but again, that is something that kind of got fixed a little bit in 5th Ed. 5th Ed has basically this with like maybe 2 or 3 more.
I think it's about the same. It might be a little bit more. Yeah,
because there's like there's deception that this doesn't
bluff,
have.
Yeah. Well, like, deception is bluff. So,
yeah, but like
there's been some renaming in 5th edition.
Change.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing. Nature, perception, religion,
Survival.
slavery,
Get rid of survival. I think
yeah, survival comes
I
back.
think they wrap survival into
Nature, yeah.
On the other hand, I don't remember Streetwise or any equivalent.
Streetwise doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah.
No. So yeah. But more or less, this was massaged, but it's about the same idea in 5th edition.
But there's
as
like
in fourth, and that's
investigate
actually
that
meritorious.
has this.
Yeah. But yeah, the skill list being this condensed, it's about the right size, I'd say, actually, for a skill list. Because at a certain point, you're just getting way too deep in the weeds. All right. Feats. So feats are in 3 tiers. By that I mean 4 tiers, but I mean 3 tiers. Heroic feats are the most plentiful type. They also are the only ones that actually scale with whatever tier you are. Paragon feats are where the defensive bonuses start to appear, as well as evasion and metal are actually feats in this edition. And they still do what evasion and metal do, so sort of the equivalent thereof, because everything is rolled by the other person, but the same idea. And epic tiers where the crit range feats are. In this edition, you crit on 20. 19 through 20, you have to actually get an epic tier feat for. So all of them are, okay, they're just mild in effect and usually passive, but sometimes in ways that still add to cognitive load, because evasion adds to your cognitive load a little bit. You still have to remember you have evasion. It's not a big deal per se, but if you get enough of these, they add up. Though ironically, it can sometimes they add up almost in a positive way, because if you get both evasion and metal, there's less to remember, because it's like, I just don't take half damage from any.
Worth noting, by the way, as far as the crit thing.
Oh no, you just don't take half damage, because AC is on evasion as well.
Yeah. The crit thing, I will say, while does take until epic tier to be able to get a 19 to 20 crit range, crits in 4th ed are just crits. There is not confirmation.
Yes. They are maximize your damage dice.
Yeah, they are maximize your damage dice, and it is just, if you roll a crit, you have crit. You don't have to roll again to see if you would hit.
Correct.
Et cetera, et cetera. It is just like, no, you got a 20, you crit, or if you have the feat, you got a 19 or 20, you crit.
Yeah. On the negative side, you maximize damage dice, so you don't inherently roll anything, though they do have mechanics to make up for that.
They do have mechanics to make up for that, and later on, there are some powers that have extra effects on crit.
Yeah.
I don't mind them having all these feats be little because you get so many of them in 4th ed. Having them all be little minor effects is fine, and they diverse the stat bonuses off of them. So.
They do. Also of note, there's not anything that's a hit, actually, because it's back to that whole, you have your stat, and you have your stat, and everyone adds half level to everything, so yeah.
There's some, like, Nimble Blade is a +1 to hit.
Yeah, there's the occasional thing, but
it's like,
that was a notable exception, but, and yeah, there are feats, that is the other thing, there are feats that, this is where the actual, like, keywords and stuff come into play, because that applies to light blades.
Light blade, they have to have advantage.
Yeah. You also have feats that are like for arcane classes in later books, I think, or specific classes in this book, stuff like that.
Or you have like weapon focus, where you have to pick.
Yeah,
power attack, better effective.
Yeah, and it's sort of severely nerfed from 3rd edition, where you can do stupid shit. But
since I was totally here earlier, I assume you went over bloodied being like half health.
No, actually,
we didn't actually talk about
that. There's a combat section, so there's a lot of stuff I haven't actually gone over.
There is stuff talking about bloodied. So.
Yeah,
but bloodied is you're at half health.
Yeah, they added a bunch of effects in this edition that trigger off of.
Yes.
Yeah,
which they forgot about for 10 years and then brought back in 2024.
Yes.
All right. Multiclassing, not really. Yeah, you may have noticed how I didn't say anything about multiclassing, because you can't. You pick a class and you're stuck in it for 30 levels. So you can multiclass through multiclassing feats. Again, not really. You take one of these feats to gain a skill entirely fixed on what class you're multiclassing into, and a lesser version of a class feature. It also lets you take a series of 3 swap feats that let you take an encounter, utility, and daily power from that class, making them kind of meh, because these are the only feats that don't really actually add. They just swap. If you have all of these feats before 11, you can take your multi-class as your Paragon path, giving you the lower level powers from that class instead of the better abilities from your Paragon path. This is really just not worth it.
It was passingly mentioned earlier, and we'll obviously get to it later when the book that actually has the rules for it happened. But later they did improve upon this with what was called hybrid classing,
where you literally squish 2 classes together, and it works a hell of a lot better than this. All right, equipment. So coins and armor, because I decided to throw them on one page for reasons. So coins are the same scaling as previous editions. Almost all prices are still in gold coins. There's Astro Diamonds for
Fucking whatever reason.
if you're carrying about weight, basically, because they weigh practically nothing or are worth a shit ton. But again, if you don't really care about the weight system, who cares? And there are 3 tiers of light and heavy armor. That's why this is how armor trading actually works in this edition. Light armor lets you add dex or intelligence, and each tier in the same category is basically +1 AC over the previous tier. The better better armor is baked into certain magical armors. Basically, at a certain you see the minimum enhancement bonus on there. That's once you are wearing armor that has that enhancement bonus, you're wearing it's going to be like for plate. If you're wearing something that has an enhancement bonus of +4, it's going to be a war plate, so it's going to have an even higher AC bonus as well. This matters a lot more for the heavier armors than it does for the light ones, because the light ones is only like 1 per tier, and the heavier ones go up by a significant amount more. But again, you're not adding int or dex to the stat. Also of note, shields add to both AC and reflex defense in this edition. And check and speed penalties are still a thing.
It's also worth noting, as far as actual like proficiency with armors go, sometimes it will be just light or heavy, and sometimes it will be the specific tier. So, like, I believe, if I remember correctly, cleric specifically has cloth, leather, hide, and chainmail,
Yes.
but does not actually have heavy, so it can't wear scale mail or plate armor.
Yeah, they're actually done by the they're done by the categories and not by light or heavy. But
Yeah, I just think some of the, like the feats are specific to like heavy or light rather
Yeah,
than specific ones.
I believe the feats let you go up a tier, or basically let you go up a tier with them. Let me, because those are really quick. Let's see. Yeah, they are for each individual tier of light or heavy. So our proficiency scale is you gain proficiency with scale armor. Proficiency plate is
Well, no, but I mean, like there are ones that are like benefit for like when you're wearing XYZ armor or whatever, or like for
those
instance,
exist too.
or like for instance, like the dwarves are specifically like heavy armor, so it's not actually like
yeah, it's the
chainmail
entire
scale, whatever it is,
It's
just
the
all
entirety
three
of
of
those
them.
3 categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And weapons, again, 3 tiers. They're simple. Military, that's what they renamed it to. It wasn't martial.
Yeah.
And superior, which is what they renamed exotic to, except so military weapons are balanced with each other relatively, and superior weapons are actually slightly better than military, as opposed to in 3.5, where exotic weapons existed for fucking reasons and were sometimes worse straight up than simple weapons. And
They usually had weird, bullshit extra riders on them that oftentimes didn't matter.
Like,
No.
they exist.
Like, yay, this has a
They-
+2
they're-
bonus on like trip and disarm attempts,
yeah.
but also weaker attack die.
Weapons were much more built into the simulation as part of the game. This is an exotic weapon, so it should be hard to fucking use, not because it actually justifies it in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. But yeah, like examples here. Bastard sword is just a better long sword. A Katar is just straight up better short sword. Let's see. Offhand weapons don't inherently get to swing unless you have a power as you use them. Reach is less dumb in this edition. You still get to hit things next to you without a penalty. It's funny because they wrote out for reach. You can still attack things next to you without penalties.
It is worth noting offhand specifically as the target. If you have any sort of thing that's you're doing like 2 weapon fighting with, like Ranger for instance, your second weapon has to be an offhand weapon. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm just going to use 2 of this weapon." That's a one-handed weapon. It has to have the offhand quality.
It does, except if you're a ranger specifically, because their thing for if you're a ranger and you actually choose the two weapon fight, it actually lets you use a normal size weapon in your offhand. So it actually undermines that completely in this book. But that is generally the idea. Yeah, there are other classes that actually do have offhand attacks that actually do not have that clause. And the thing I was going over with dagger. So as you can see, there's a proficiency bonus. It's either a +2 or a +3. You're adding that to your attacks whenever you're doing an attack with a weapon. Daggers is specifically, while they are a simple weapon, they actually do have a +3. Rogues adding an extra +1 means it's a +4, which is better than you can get with any other weapon. There's no weapon that has a proficiency bonus of +4, and considering rogues actually just have the better damage with everything, you just want to hit more. Yeah.
It's also worth noting there is no non-proficiency penalty. You just don't get the proficiency bonus for using an item, a weapon you're not proficient with.
Yep.
You can still do it. You're just shy by 2 or 3 attack.
Yeah. Adventuring gear, as usual, matters a bit at lower levels and is trivial change after everything is trivial change after level 5, unless you're trying to buy a boat or something. Like a sailing ship is 10 grand, a warhorse, I guess, is 680, which eventually stops even money, honestly. And everything else is, yeah. Like, how in the weeds you want to get on this is entirely the purview of how your group plays a game, but we are very much a. Okay, after a while, you can fucking afford anything.
Don't let numbers get in the way of narrative.
Yeah. Don't let numbers get in the way of narrative. Assume player characters are just going to buy reasonable fucking supplies. I know.
For the love of Christ, don't make them track normal ammo. Again, unless it's like an extenuating circumstance of like, oh, you're in for like a long, protracted battle. Yes, I'm going to make you keep track of how many arrows you have left.
But yeah, if the DAM for long expeditions wants them to turn in a giant itinerary of all the supplies they bought for that expedition, why are you playing Spread Siege similar?
Yeah, I mean that's on fucking him. He's the one that's got to keep track of that shit.
Yeah. At a certain point, let's hand wave it so we can actually get on with the narrative. I mean, for crying out loud, or other parts of the game that are more interesting. All right, magic items. So here's the basics for them. All magic items have a level which determines cost and bonus. They also have special properties and come as is. There's no adding stuff together like in 3rd edition. If you have a flaming weapon, it's a flaming weapon. You cannot make a flaming, freezing, acid weapon. Let's see. Also, things disenchants into 1/5 value of an enchanting substance and a related note, and something I forgot on a previous slide. Everything sells for 1/5. Is just how this edition works. You can use 1 item daily power per day per tier. You get another use after a milestone. You get a milestone every 2 encounters. You can still only use any individual magic item's daily power once per day. So you actually have to have another magic item with a daily power in order to use that milestone, that extra milestone use.
It is worth noting, by the way, when we talked about coins earlier, and you were like, "Oh, there's astral diamonds, which are, one is worth like 10,000 gold and
$1 million
or whatever."
I know for gold it's 10,000.
Gold was 10,000.
Yeah. It was 10,000.
It's worth $1 million.
Oh wait, sorry, it's worth $1 million. There.
It's worth
I
$1
was
million
looking at the
copper.
wrong
Yeah,
table.
it's 10,000 gold and 1/500th of a pound. So residuum, the goop that shit disenchants into, is also the weight of a single gold piece of residuum is also worth 10,000 gold.
Yeah.
So fucking who cares?
Yeah. Just keep track of numbers. Basically, it's for the amount of personal wealth you have. Notably, I think it was when you make characters past level 1, you get a item of your character level, an item level of your character level -1.
Yeah, there's a table.
It's not a specific number though. It is like that, and then you get like money equal to like I think your item level -1 or 2,
something like that. Yeah,
something like that.
Which is also technically progression-wise. Again, we'll talk about it when we get into the DMG because that's where it has. I think that table is actually in the DMG. I don't think it's in
probably
PHP.
is in the DMG.
Because
I don't remember seeing it in this book.
Because that's all part of how you're supposed to be awarding players as they progress through the game as well.
Yeah. So, in case magic items, the items. Magic item slots are armor, which weapons / implements, however many you can hold. Arms, which shields are included in arms now. So. A bracer or a shield are the same slot. Feet, hands, neck. You get 2 ring slots, and you have a waist slot. There are also wondrous items like bags of holding and potions. So the main feature here is the mandatory flat numbers to keep up with the math of the game, and there's other things, I guess. Also, weapons are far more boring, honestly. So your bonuses to hit will always come from weapons, obviously. Your bonuses to AC will always come from armor. Your bonuses to defenses will always come from a neck item. Every other slot is fair game for what it does.
Yeah, they have kind of weird variability. I will also note, again, as I was stressing earlier about healing surges, even a potion of healing uses a healing surge. It just does 10 rather than you actually doing the
healing surge
amount.
Which you might have noticed. I haven't mentioned anything about the amount of healing surge mentions, and nor has the book. It mentions it in one place in the book. It took me quite a while to actually figure out where that was. You could just look up in the index and you would find it. It is 1/4 your hit points, or half your bloodied hit points.
Which, after a certain point, is going to be more than 10, meaning potions of healing aren't great, except it's not
Okay,
always
so-
easy to be able to trigger a healing surge. You don't always have free reign to do that like in combat.
I did not have space on this chart to put them. All of the potions in this book are actually healing potions.
Yes,
So
they are tiered.
Yeah, they are actually tiered. Vitality, I believe, heals I think it's like 20, 50, 100 or something. I don't.
But you also may notice that a potion of vitality is like significantly more expensive than a potion of healing.
it's also a level 15 magic item. So
Yeah.
Okay, you say weapon effects aren't fun, but Vorpal, despite it is level
that's
30.
like one of the exceptions, and
It's
it is level
exploding
30.
dice.
If more of them were like Vorpal, I'd be a lot more on board. They are more like fucking.
They're more like the magic holy symbol, where it's
Well, those are
here's
the
a
generic
bonus
ones.
and your crit doesn't.
Yeah, that is the other
Or
thing.
like you add like a d6 fire damage.
Yeah, in fairness, those are like the base ones. But I mean, like even the Pack Blade, which is kind of special in the sense that Warlocks can use it as an implement. They don't have the proficiency bonus when they use it as an implement, but it still adds the enhancement bonus.
But same.
But
thing,
it's like, what else
magic
does
holy
it do?
symbol and magic weapon.
Yeah.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
You add bonus to attack and damage rolls, and then your crits do an extra d6.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even when you have properties like on the armor here, it's like when enemy scores a critical hit against you, you gain regeneration 5 till end of encounter, or if it's a high enough level, it's
Regular magic
regeneration
armor,
tear.
just magic armor, just bonus AC.
And basically, how they price out these effects is it's just a higher level magic item, effectively. So, like the base magic armor, a +1 is a level 1 magic item. A dwarven armor, which has a bit extra on it, is a level 2 magic item.
That has the effect of magic item that also has a daily power and a property.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth across the entire board.
Yeah, and yes, I put Vorpal here just to undermine myself because that is actually like the most entertaining.
Exploding
of them.
dice, it's great.
It's
It's
exploding dice.
unfortunately
That is
a level
literally
30
fun.
item.
Yeah, it is also a level, but it's like the like
And
elemental properties are. As an at-will power, it can just do elemental damage instead of normal damage.
Yeah.
And here's where you actually start to roll dice for crits. By the way, you get an extra die per
Yes.
plus you have when you crit, which is neat. It's not amazing, but it's neat, and at least throws the dice back into the game, which is always kind of a good thing, honestly.
Yep.
Something else elementals did, and it's bugging me.
I'm just thinking about the fun stuff of Vorpal Blade, 'cause I know later on, like fighter powers are things like 10 weapon dice and etc. So it's like I scored a crit, so I roll like 20d6 and then 6d12.
Every single one of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
And I use this power for an extra like 3d12, then anything explodes.
So there are a number of weapons on this table that are just straight up 2d6. So when you're doing multiple, or 2d4, so when you're doing like multiple weapons of damage, you're going to do 4d6 or 6d6 or 8d6. It is you very quickly do a large number
Yeah,
of dice.
it is very easy, especially by the time you're getting like a level 30 weapon anyways, to be doing like 6d6 base damage.
Well,
and then
as like a lot of weapons, like high, especially like even like mid tier, you can get things like 5 or 6 weapon dice.
Yeah.
So at level 30, you can get things like 9 or 10 weapon dice on an attack, which then all
Could be
can
like
explode
20
with
dice,
Vorpals.
yeah.
So you're like 20 d6 with like 9 extra d12, plus anything else they can add, and then all those explode. Like Vorpal can be great fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Vorpal's also level 30. So
Yeah.
it's
Meanwhile-
great fun when your campaign's done. If
So-
you ever got that high.
So yeah, pulled up the elemental ones just as more of an example of what's more boring here. So you can change as an at-will power. You can just change all your damage to whatever the element is. And as a daily power, as a free action, when you hit something, you can do an extra 1 dice, 2 dice, or 3 dice of damage, depending on how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Once, and then some rider effect, like fire is extra fire damage until they save. Frost is they're slowed until they save. Stuff like that. Frost is D8s, but yeah, it's okay, but not really that interesting. That's my other problem here is if you actually look at a lot of the daily powers, they're
Daily power, do 3 extra d12. Daily power, heal.
daily, extra hit points equal to your healing surge value, or temporary hit points equal to your healing surge value, stuff like that. Yeah.
And when you consider that it's also like you get baseline 1, 2, 4 daily uses of powers, and that's not each one has to be a unique item.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of items that don't actually
That
have
just don't
daily
have any?
powers. They
Yeah.
just have at will or encounter powers, and they're a lot better because I can just use an encounter
can just
power
use
every fucking encounter, and it's not limited to the number of them I can use.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Adventuring. So the adventuring chapter. This chapter goes over the non-combat stuff. Briefly mentions skill challenges, they're properly in the DMG, so we'll just go over in DMG. As well as milestones, travels, breaking things, and resting. So, anyways, combat.
I do just want to define real quick because we've mentioned it a few times, but it is a thing that is new to this edition. Milestones are specifically whenever you complete 2 encounters without a break, without a long rest, or what they call an extended rest between them. That is considered a milestone. That's when milestone stuff refreshes. You get extra
We
whatever.
touched on that very briefly. We talked about the match
Yeah.
items. Refreshing them or getting an extra.
Also short rest, which is very different in this edition. It is 5 minutes. It is literally meant to be done between every combat. And it's just 5 minutes of non-strenuous activity. This includes just fucking walk.
You can spend as many healing surges as you want during a short rest. The more important thing is, like, if for some reason you are not able to take a short rest, you don't get encounter powers back.
This is very much for narrative convenience of the DM if they just want to do an encounter after an encounter or something like that. But otherwise, you're almost always going to get a short rest between encounters. Like if they had 2 mini encounters planned, like shoved together, or it's sort of like there's not enough of a break between 2 different events or something. It's just some flexibility for that. All right, combat. All right, so the action economics here. First and foremost, initiative is a D20 plus 4th edition plus dexterity. I get sick of saying half level. Okay. So surprise. The surprise round. If you were the one doing the surprising, you get a standard action. If you're the one surprised, tough shit. Otherwise, normally you get a standard, a move, and a minor action, and can trade down actions if you wish. So you can trade a standard action for a move or a minor action. You trade a move action for a minor action. You trade a minor action for nothing. Here's a table of everything you could do over here for substituting actions, just in case this is somehow more confusing than it needs to be for you. But yeah, you can do 2 moves and a minor. You can do 3 minors. You can do a move and 2 minors, a standard and 2 minors, or you can just do 1 of each.
I don't really think a table of all 5 different
No,
things was necessary, but sure.
They did it though.
Yeah.
What else are they going to use that space for? Shiv? Art?
That'd be silly.
No, art costs money.
Yep. There's also a proper start of turn and end of turn with things that happen sometimes, if you remember. It's mechanical bookkeeping. These are the same people who made Magic the Gathering. And this is after 6th edition rules came out. So they were very much they very much did a kind of comprehensive rules gloss over of this rulebook, more so than I think even 5th edition has, and
Which is actually fine.
it is
That's-
actually
that's not
fun.
a
I actually
problem.
like this isn't a complaint. I actually like that. It makes stuff. It cuts down on the amount of questions and searching through rules for the occasional thing.
How does this work do it? Well,
yeah.
here's the table.
It's not as much of a problem in 5th edition because 5th edition is 5th edition is why I like to call rules medium, because a lot of stuff is lighter anyways, so there's not really as many confusing nonsense you get into as in 3.5. But yeah, this is great. I actually do specifically like stuff like this, where it's just like, okay, this effect, then this effect, then this effect, then this effect, so you don't freaking have any
So
questions.
I use my encounter power, and that goes on the stack. And then priority passes.
I'm going to need you to leave.
No, I play my split second power, so no one else can add to the stack.
Okay, that's fair. That's how it works.
But I have this power, which is a special action, so it doesn't have to worry about split second.
I play Shahrazad. We have to play another game of D&D.
I play Under the Dungeon. We're playing this game of D&D under the table. So anyways, AoE shapes. All right, so there are 2 different AoE shapes in this edition. There's Blast, X. This is the 4th edition equivalent of Cone, because I don't think I go over it on a later slide. Diagonals are just 1 space, so a cone would actually just be a square. So it's an X by X square. So if it's Blast 3, it's going to be a 3 by 3 square. It is placed in contact with your character. There's also Burst X. This is an AoE that extends X spaces in all directions, either centered on you or a point in range if it has a range. So if it is range 10, burst 1, it will be a 3 by 3 square on something centered at range. If it's just burst 1, it will be the squares around you. This is dumb. Pick one or the other. Fucking idiots. Straight up, why? The number should either be the X by X or how far it extends from the center point. Just don't. Also, walls exist. It's a number, you place them orthogonal with that number. If it's a wall 6, it does something like that. You can place them in whatever direction, but it has to be an orthogonal. It has to be
They have to
orthogonal.
connect to
Yeah,
something,
they have to connect by the orthogonal.
Yeah, they have to be.
diagonal.
Yeah, it does specifically call out they have to share a side, not just a
Yep.
corner. It is the one instance in the entirety of fourth ed where diagonals do not count.
Yeah.
I mean, I see a reason for the difference between blast and burst, but that's only if the burst is centered like around you.
Okay.
So it's enemy, not hitting you.
I think what it is blast is cone, but they didn't want to use cones.
They didn't want to actually use cones.
That's a bit what
But
it is.
they're describing the same shape and they're using two different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
The other and bigger problem I also have is one is named Blast and the other is named Burst. That are 5-letter words that start with a B and a T, and at a glance, you can sometimes mix this up. And they're still describing the same shape. It's still just a fucking square. Also,
Like I said, blasts feel like they wanted to be cones, but they didn't want to deal with the cone math
yeah.
and positioning, so they just made it squares instead.
Well, again, everything diagonal is one anyway, so a cone would, by cone math, just be a square. Is the reason why the 1s and 2s, while I do hate it is not fucking worth it, they do actually make the shapes look like the shapes.
Yeah.
All right, so conditions and also resistance, which I shoved up there in the corner because it's worth talking about, but that's all there is to it. So much more modest list with less overlap than before when it comes to all the status conditions. Also, conditions now grant other conditions sometimes, like dazed will grant combat advantage. Technically, combat advantage wasn't on this table. I had to throw it in, but it's still effectively a condition. And various other things like this. Incapacitated, I believe. Yeah. Helpless.
Unconscious gives you prone.
Unconscious gives you prone. A lot of things. Again, a lot of things grant combat advantage.
Dominated makes you dazed. Dying makes you unconscious.
Dying does implicitly make you conscious. Unfortunately, I don't have the dead conditions. I don't know if I can do when I'm dead.
Also notably, helpless does not actually prevent you from taking actions.
No.
Granted, I think you only get helpless through conditions like unconscious.
Yeah, it says
so
usually you're
it's-
helpless because you're unconscious.
Yeah. But yeah. So resistance is a flat DR versus a specific damage type. There's no longer a separation between energy and melee damage type. So if you can have just resistance to slashing damage, and you'll just take less from slashing damage. There's a flat reduction, which is kind of annoying, but that's a different matter entirely. And vulnerable is literally the opposite. Whenever you take that any amount of that damage, you take that much extra damage. A lot of powers, especially striker powers, will actually grant like vulnerable to a damage type of one sort or another. Let's see, movement. Diagonal costs now only 1 square instead of the awkward nonsense of 3rd edition. Speed, like everything else, is now in squares just because. I guess it is a little bit more convenient if you are really dedicated to playing on a grid, which in this edition is pretty much mandatory anyways. And in fairness, we did a lot of playing on a grid, but it's the translation between that and 5 feet. You memorize pretty quickly after a while, so it's not a big deal one way or the other. It's easy to go both ways because multiplying 1 by 5 or dividing a number by 5 is really simple math.
There is one exception, by the way, as demonstrated by the diagram here about the diagonal things. You cannot move diagonally if you do like clip a wall.
Yeah. Though oddly enough, you can move diagonally through like monsters or 2 different monsters.
Yeah, you just it's specifically if it would go into like a wall, you cannot pass through the corners of walls and stuff.
Yeah. And again, this is all the reason why blasts are just straight up squares. More formalized terms for consistent rulings also push, pull, slide, and teleportation. Push has to be away from you. Pull has to be towards you. Slide is wherever the fuck you want. Teleportation is movement without provoking or caring about anything in between the point you start and their destination point, basically. Save maybe line of effect. It depends on the effect, ability. All right, actions. Action points are a thing. You spend them for an extra action. You get 1 per day and another one when you hit a milestone. You notice Warlord earlier was talking about action points. That's what they are. Every character has them. Basic attacks only really come up with Warlords and charging, as most at-will class powers are just better. There's no reason to do melee basic attack when you have something that does weapon plus strength damage plus some
extra
other
stuff.
effect.
Yeah.
Or targets reflex instead of AC or something.
Yeah, as long as I know
'cause-
that none of the at-will powers that things had were just weapon damage plus stat. They always had something else.
It is worth noting, as far as action points go, there is technically no cap to how many action points you can have in stock. However, every time you long rest, you reset to 1. So use them or lose them.
Basically, yeah. And delay takes words to explain. Oh, man, does it take many words? This is the This is actually a side effect of it being a much more comprehensive rule system. Is sometimes simple actions really do just take a shit ton of rules to explain. If you look at the Magic rules book on some things, they are just large explanations of a concept that you can explain in like 3 or 4 words.
Yeah.
So delay is you pick a trigger in your action. You delay your action until a later trigger that you define. Done. But it has to actually like define everything within the rule system, so it kind of comes out to a lot more words than you strictly need for something like that. But I understand it, and I don't mind this existing again for just technicality's sake. And it covers corner cases. Also, here's where we actually define Second Wind. It's a standard action, or if you're a dwarf, it's a minor action, which is why that's a pretty legit minor action, honestly. It gives +2 bonus to all defenses. That does include AC, and you get to use it once per encounter. And again, the healer insert value here finally is 1/4 your hit points, which is half your bloodied amount. But yeah, it is everyone's healing action. It is very much, unless you're a dwarf, it is also very much an emergency thing to do because it takes your entire turn. Minus whatever minor actions you might be able to do, really.
Move action.
And move action. Yep.
But it is at least an option everyone has. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah,
I'm really
it is
low.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm gonna die. Our cleric is busy doing something else, or
Or is out of minor action, or is just out of healing words.
Yeah, or it's out of healing words because he only gets 2/3 a day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna spend a standard action to get 1/4 of my hit points back so I can stand this fight.
Yep. Yeah, and more actions. And again, as a reminder, you can always downgrade, so you can do multiples of these. Shift replaces the 5-foot step from 3rd edition and is just straight up move action. Talk only appears on this table. There's no every single one of these has like a paragraph or 2 blurb of all of the special things about it. So talk just says you can speak a few sentences on this table and appears nowhere else in this book. You don't need it, but it is funny.
But it is a free action.
Yeah. Opportunity action is an attack. So there's also opportunity actions and immediate actions. These are 2 separate things. Opportunity actions, which is mostly just opportunity attack, you can do once per turn. Fighter also gets to do an extra wisdom modifier times per turn, and immediate actions is once per round. Why a fighter would need to do it more than like twice in a round, I don't know, but twice in a turn for an opportunity action, I don't know, but it's good to have, I guess. All right. Death and Dying. Also introducing the saving throw, which I've not actually talked about until now. So a lot of things will say save ends, which you just do at the end of your turn. You need 11 plus. There's nothing that only things that add to this say that they add to that number. Death saves are the same way. You get 3 failed death saves, it kills you. Otherwise, you're just sitting there doing nothing. By the way, succeeding at a save means you just didn't fail at a save. The only exception is if you roll a 20, which gets you back up.
And the only primary difference with death saves is actually 10 plus, not 11 plus.
Oh, yeah, it's 10 plus. Might be 10 plus for normal save too.
I don't think it is. I think you're right that it's mostly 11 plus, but I think death save specifically is 10 plus.
Yeah. Notably, I think that only gets you back up if you actually have a healing surge to spend.
Yes, if you roll a 20 or higher but have no healing surges left, expressed as a negative number, your condition doesn't change.
Yeah. Also, your hit points, you still go to negative hit points, but all healing treats you as if you were at 0 hit points to determine where you are when you're restored hit points. Yeah. 1 healing will get you back in the fight, basically. But you do die when you're at negative your bloodied value, which is half your hit points, which is significantly more generous than it was in 3.5. To the point of it almost not actually being much of a thing once you get to higher levels.
But
you have a decent chunk of hit points.
But those of you that are coming to this with only real experience from 5th ed may notice that there's no stabilization after successfully making a certain number of death saves.
Death saves every single round until someone stabilizes or you die.
And also, your failed death saves do not reset until you rest. It is not reset every time you go down. If you go down again before you rest, you still have the same number of failed saves. So it is 3 fails before a rest will cause you to die.
Yeah.
So it was a good step in the right direction, but...
It was a good step in the right direction from where 3.5 was, where it's just hit the threshold and die outright. But it's still a little bit more painful to players than it needs to be.
Yeah. That being said, if I remember correctly, you're not bleeding out.
No.
is the
No.
thing. You don't lose hit points unless somebody hits you again while you're down.
You effectively, negative hit points don't matter in this game.
They do. You
They
die if
do.
you're negative bloodied.
Oh, that's true. You do it right.
Yeah.
So,
you're
but the
actually
only way, but the only way you really get there is either A,
It's
you
someone
got
keeps
dropped there,
beating
but
your
you got
ass.
dropped there in the first place, and you fucking outright died regardless, or something
Someone
keeps
keeps
pounding on you while you're down. You don't bleed out
Yeah,
like you did in 3-5.
Yeah. There is the coup de grace action, which is a straight critical hit versus a helpless enemy, and
Yeah.
when you're unconscious, you're helpless. So, things can't just kill you while you're on the ground. But
And they can in 3-5. Or in
they
fifth-
can in
in
3-5
fifth-
as
in
well.
fifth
Yeah.
ed,
And
too.
5th ed, yeah.
Because you get attacked while you're down, you just fail a death.
You fail. It's a failed death saving throw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, rituals. So you may have noticed that basically everything a fucking class does, save wizard cantrips and the very occasional utility power, are basically just combat stuff. What about that non-combat stuff that magic used to do? Yeah, that's where this stuff is. So this is how this is how you have utility magic when there's only one class that's not a caster. Wizards and clerics, by the way, can do this by default, but there's also a feed that lets anyone just do ritual magic. You basically buy scrolls that have rituals on them. They let you do a thing. They all have cast times that are well above what it would be realistic in combat. Like combat, by the way, combat rounds are still 6 seconds is one combat round. Knock is a 10-minute cast. You cannot fucking do knock in combat unless you have a really long combat.
No, but I do still like that knock makes them better than rounds.
Yeah.
Because it is basically make an arcane check against the exact same thing their thievery check would be against, but also for +5. Because fuck you.
Yes. At least it's not just
At least it's not
automatic.
automatic, but
but yeah, it's
cost
also
a
where,
healing surge for some reason.
yeah, it's also how you make magic items and disenchant magic items, and it is just simple. You just have these really cheap scrolls to do both.
Yep.
So it handles the magic items are mandatory in this edition, and it handles it relatively well. I can't actually complain too much about this simply because magic items are mandatory in this edition. The math relies on the player characters having their numbers scale at certain levels. Because it is just a game of tight math. And finally in this book, here's the character sheet, so I can kind of criticize the character sheet a little bit in one way or another. It's in and of itself fine for when you're out of combat. It's when you get into combat that I actually have my major criticisms with it, because especially if you printed this as one sheet with one page on the
Flip
front
over
and
the
one
back.
page on the back. So all
Your
the
powers are on the back and your stats are on the front.
all your vital numbers. You see the attack workspace, so you know what numbers you need to hit. But all your powers are on the back, and also that is not enough fucking space to tell me what my powers actually fucking do.
That's not enough space for. Did you see the boxes that every fucking power wants?
Well, of course not, Vince. That's why you buy these handy-dandy Wizards of the Coast printed D&D power cards.
I have less complaints about that than you would expect, because at least they're not in random packs.
No, but it still
But
doesn't
it's
change the
still
fact
stupid.
that it is. No, the character sheet provided is absolutely with the intention of like, well, if you want to just have a quick reference for your powers, you can buy the power cards.
I mean, honestly, if I was playing physical only, I'd probably want the power card just for simplicity, anyways.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
just make my own sheet that
it
has
does
all
have-
those.
Yeah,
but-
or
Yeah.
like when Krampus and I used to play a lot of 4th ed, we literally just bought a like huge pack of index cards and
Yeah,
you
cut
can
them
use
in
those
half
cards as well. I don't mind them actually.
and some highlighters.
Yeah, I don't mind them selling that stuff simply because it is an aid for playing the game that they built in the first place, and I don't think they built the game around being able to sell cards. It's
No.
just an added bonus. But whatever, I don't need the cards.
Yeah,
It's
just,
it-
this
it-
is useless.
Yeah, if the cards were the only place where you got all the information for the powers, that would be a
That would
different
be-
matter
that would
entirely.
be-
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
I
But
would-
it's just in the
that
book.
would annoy me. But this they're on the book. I don't care. Whatever. It's a game aid. I don't mind that.
It is. You can make your own flashcards. You can do whatever you want, but we also sell official one, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not the only way. That's not a problem. It's just that the character sheet is useless for actually showing what the fuck your character
Correct.
can do. It's going to be a blurb that says, I have healing word. Now let me go to the fucking book
And see what the fuck healing word does.
There's no
Yeah.
way to fit it here.
But yeah, in general, this character sheet is just not great for actually trying to run your combat. And I would, at the very least, you need to print. I would print this out on 2 sheets, so you could at least put, or 2 pieces of paper, so you could put it next to each other if you were even doing that. Although we're in the modern era, just use a fucking spreadsheet on your laptop.
Like, I wouldn't even print it on 2 sheets. I'd do double-sided, not care about the back. Separate.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't even
Yeah.
I wouldn't even print that back sheet because it has fucking nothing of relevance.
It's just
I would literally have a separate sheet that is just basically a sheet with a bunch of the power cards on it.
Yeah. Like
you might be
the back
better
sheet
off
is
with line
basically a tracking sheet.
Yeah, you might be better off with line paper than the back.
Yeah,
sheet.
like a fucking notebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would never put any like rules text on the back page. It would just be like I'd write down the name of my at-will powers and probably what page they were on.
On the bright side, if you wanted to draw your character, there's a space for it.
Yep, usually is. They did move it to the back as opposed to having it be on the front taking up space, but
That's true, at least. All right, so the back of the book. So this is a great rules cleanup from previous edition and a reasonably good skeleton in general. I do legitimately like the more constructed and comprehensive rules. It has a lot of choices that you make at each level. That part I actually do like. I do think a character should, at the very least in a game with levels, a character should get a choice every level. The choices are largely fucking minor, so they don't feel like
Every class is the same class.
that's the biggest problem. I like that they're giving you options at every level. I don't like the fact that they're basically the same for every single class.
Yeah.
Even within the roles, like yes, the roles have slight differences in what they are intended to do, but even then, most of that is kind of reflected in their base abilities and not even so much in their powers.
Yes, but there's like 3 different strikers, and they're all going to be different variations of. You know, if you're one of the ones that attacks his weapon, do 1, 2, 3 weapon die plus stat plus other minor effects.
Well, and then even then, like I was saying, like the point is like yes, the strikers all do that, and then you've got the defenders which do 1 or 2 weapon dice and a defensive thing of some sort. They're not even that different across the roles.
No, everyone is doing the same. Is basically doing the same thing on their turn with the minor additives, which are kind of class dependent. And there's the occasional bit of spice that like goes a little bit outside. Like there's the lay on hands for paladin, or
but
there's
that's few and far between.
few and far between.
I love the concept of the big table of here's something you get every single level. I just want those to be every class has one of these and gets class things every single level. Not here's this big table that goes for 30 levels that everyone uses because everyone's basically the fucking same.
And my other issue also being like, I kind of half like encounter powers. I don't like the fact that encounter powers are once per encounter per se. I like the idea of a limited resource pool that is for the encounter because this severely reduces my analysis paralysis. I like those a lot more than I actually like daily powers, especially considering people run D&D in very different ways. There are a lot of people that will do like 1 or 2 combats a day. Encounter powers are just a better idea than daily powers.
I mean, and just in general, the other thing would even be just like make it more almost like like Vancian spellcasting kind of, where it's like, hey, you have 4 encounter power points per encounter. You can use them to use any of your encounter powers.
Yes.
Like power.
Though strangely enough, they actually did that. But
I know.
But we'll get to that later, much later.
Having it be something like, oh, you learn encounter powers at X levels, and you have the pool of like encounter power points,
and you can use any of them with
just
one of those points.
And you could even have like, oh, this is encounter power, but it's stronger than other ones, so it takes 2 points instead of 1.
Yeah, you can have scalings, things like that. And you can also design, I don't know, other fucking classes, basically, mechanically. Like, because those mechanical skeletons, you can also design things that are just simpler. Like, I am nothing but at-will powers, but stuff like that.
They're all lower powered, but it's nothing but at-wills.
They're more powerful than other classes at-wills, but they're not as powerful per se.
As encounter stuff,
but
I don't have encounter stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's a stronger than baseline, consistent, but can't burst effectively.
Oh yeah, and finally it adds half its level to things, which I know why it's adding half its level to things is to keep CR math, but it's also fucking stupid. At the very least, you shouldn't have done it with skills. I think skills is where I just go like, okay, just don't do that. You're adding extra math for no reason on that.
And we can talk about it more in depth when we get to one of our more like just general design philosophy focused ones. But it's such fucking baby's first balance mechanic.
Well, the half level thing is basically. It's the reason why they don't do it in 5th ed, because they just did bounded accuracy instead.
Yeah.
The only reason that half level's in there is because they didn't want to do bounded accuracy. So you have to make things go up and up and up as far as the numbers.
Bounded accuracy was less of a concept back then too, so there's a little bit of technology.
But it's basically a fix for that where like I said, you could throw level 1, level 2, level 3 CR stuff into a fight in 5th ed at like CR 10 encounters. And they'll still hit because the numbers are fixed in a range. Yeah. It's not, oh, this person's level 10, so they have +5 to everything now. It just doesn't.
Yeah. It also makes it so the other thing the half level does is like something that has 5 challenge rating above you is going to have like a higher bonus inherently because the math is automatically built that way, and something that is like 2 challenge lanes above you is going to be easier to hit because again the math is inherently built that way.
Yeah.
But you don't really need that, and again, that's only half doing the job, and it's like trying to actually build a proper encounter just by using EXP budget and challenge
Well-
lane in 5th edition. It has better guardrails on it
Yeah.
slightly because of how the math works out, but it's still not perfect by any means.
And I think we can get more in depth into that when we cover the 4th Ed DMG and Monster Manual, which will
Yep.
be more into encounter design, CR, all how that works, which should be next week.
Yes, both the DMG and the Monster Manual will probably be covered at the same time because there is some overlapping in concepts, and I can't honestly give both of them their own individual.
Yeah, they're not enough to do that.
Yeah.
That being said, we're going to take a break here for just a few minutes and then be back with Sound Goblin story time as we continue our playthrough of Paranormasight. So I guess we'll see you then in about 10-ish minutes or so.
Yep. Also, hindsight's 2020.